Welcome to Ready Sleeps, your go-to channel for Reddit stories to fall asleep or relax to. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, press the subscribe button and let's begin.
I think my boyfriend is trying to push our relationship off on his friend. As the title suggests, I believe that my boyfriend is trying to actively move me to date his best friend. I've been dating my boyfriend, we'll call him Michael, for about a year now. We've known each other for years because we've always been in the same friendship group since high school. His best friend, we'll call him John, has also been someone I've known for a long time because he's also in the group. John had asked me out years ago, but I turned him down because he's always been somewhat of a cocky guy who could never see he was ever wrong. Many people find him charming, but I think smart is a better word. He seemed offended but brushed it off and even told people that I had asked him out and he rejected me, which was fine because it didn't affect my life at all. After a few months, all was forgotten, and we just pretended the other one didn't exist. And that's how it's been for years. Until Michael asked me out randomly, and I decided to give it a shot. It turned out we had a lot of similar hobbies and really had a good time, so we started dating shortly after that. Now, about 6 months ago, Michael started to act strange, but in really subtle ways. I would talk about how much I loved animals, and he would interject that John just loved animals, which wouldn't be weird. But he did it with everything I talked about with even the slightest bit of enthusiasm. If I loved it, John loved it just as much. He told me how compatible I and John were and how he wished we meshed more. I eventually told Michael I really didn't care what John liked because he was kind of pretentious, and we never got along. He seemed really offended but quickly recovered, and by the next day everything was good again. About a week after that instance, Michael would talk up to John randomly and with seemingly no reason. "Hey, I talked to Brittany yesterday, and man, John is apparently a god in bed, haha. Maybe I should ask the guy for tips. John is volunteering at that shelter we went to a couple weeks ago. What a guy. We should have John make us dinner. He's a great cook." It was every other day that I had to hear about John's greatness, and it was to the point that I initially thought that Michael wanted to date John. Then, 3 weeks ago, after we had some drinks, he asked me, if we ever broke up, would you date someone else in the group? I had no idea what to say because it was so random, but he quickly filled the void by saying, "I think I would if I were you and John was single." Seriously. So 3 days ago, I confronted him in the kitchen and told him that if he had anything he wanted to tell me, I would listen to it no matter what and that I would always be there for him. He seemed confused and told me he had no idea what I meant by that. So I brought up all the times he talked about John and how he would date him and told him that if he really wanted to date John, I understood and would support them. After all, they're best friends, so they obviously have a good connection. When I say he blew up, I cannot stress how angry he got. He used a dozen slurs for gay people and said he was disgusted that I saw him like that and that he would never do something like that. We ended up getting into a huge fight over it because I certainly don't support his language or attitude toward LGBTQ folks, and it was just a vibe I got from him, and I didn't mean to mislabel him. We haven't really talked, but he's staying at his parents' house right now, and today John called me to tell me he doesn't support Michael's attitude toward me, and invited me over to talk about it, even saying that Michael was 100% okay with it. Am I crazy? Am I making up some convoluted story in my head, or is this bizarre? My boyfriend hypes up his best friend to me and talks about how compatible we are, and I'm worried he's trying to push me toward a relationship with him. Relevant comments. Smocked69. You should ask him why he is trying to set you up with John. You should also break up with Michael. OOP replied, I just didn't want to come out and say that because it's so presumptuous, I guess. I have no proof, just that gut feeling that something is wrong. I'm trying to think through my options. Because this is our first real fight, but once again, it's always about John. LTT79. Or Michael is secretly in love with John and hasn't wanted to come out yet. That explains why he blew up when you called him out. OOP replied, well, I've been thinking this over, and if that were the case, I really don't think he would have said the things he said when I asked. Habib. I'd be more concerned with his disgusting homophobia. OOP replied, I definitely called him out on it. I think it just took a backseat to me trying to figure out the whole situation in general. But it is certainly not forgotten. Throw away my Nate. So it sounds like maybe they want a threesome. Or Michael is attracted to John in some way. Or here's the kicker, maybe Michael cheated on you, and he thinks that if you hit it off with John and had sex, he wouldn't feel guilty about it. Maybe he's trying to push a free pass on you without coming out and saying he cheated. Or they are swingers. OOP replied, oh my god, all these theories are living in my head rent-free right now, and I can't get straight answers from anyone. This is going to keep me up tonight, as I can already tell. Edit. So, I called Michael when he got off work, and the first thing he asked me was if I went to vent to John. Naturally, I didn't, because we're not close, and I told him as much. He didn't have much to say about that, so I started with my questions that you guys suggested. Why are you pushing me toward John? Do you want to break up? Etc. He got once again defensive and said he refused to talk about it over the phone and suggested we meet at John's place to talk it out. I asked why John had to be included at all since it is really between the two of us, and he basically told me that it's really between the three of us. I refused to meet at John's for obvious reasons, and told him if it had to be the three of us, we could meet at a restaurant. He seemed fine with that, and we scheduled a meeting at a bar, grill that's pretty close to all of us. I showed up early and got us a table that had some privacy, and not long after, John walked through the door. He sat down immediately and started chatting about how we were both so timely, and that he liked when women showed up early because it showed they had good time management skills. 25 minutes after Michael was supposed to show up, he texts me and says he had car problems and couldn't make it but to get to know John since I was already there. I'm just beyond livid at this point. John keeps trying to buy me drinks and even tries to schedule another time to hang out. I confronted him about Michael pushing me toward him, and he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. I kept mentioning how Michael was talking about him to me, and John just said that it made sense because brothers have brothers' backs. I told him the brothers could have each other and left fuming. Michael's tried calling me 3 times, John's tried 7. I want to cut them both off and say good riddance, but to do that would mean leaving the friend group as well, and I don't really have that many friends to begin with, and it makes me so mad that I even have to make this decision. Anyway, that's the update. Sorry if it doesn't resolve anything. It makes me angry too. Relevant comments. Coronata Cadeaway. I'm going to throw this out there, saying that you did the right thing by refusing to go to John's house. I'm not saying your boyfriend would set it up so that something bad would happen to you, but it looks like John has an unhealthy obsession with you that he's somehow roped Michael into. OOP replied, after Michael didn't show up to the bar, I was really glad I didn't go to John's. If he wasn't planning on showing up the entire time, I can only assume they figured this whole thing out together. Update. I went to Michael's house pretty early this morning since I have work today, and really needed this resolved. I had been up all night going back through the comments and trying to piece everything together, and honestly, it was driving me crazy. Michael was alone when I got there, which was a relief because I pictured John showing up like a movie villain. He initially didn't want to let me in, which was really weird, but I told him I wasn't going to leave without talking to him about this. So he finally let me come in, and we sat down to talk. I asked him about last night, and he said he had car trouble, but it's all fixed now. Convenient. I asked him a few more questions but was met with vague answers, so I decided to just cut to the chase and said, why do you want me to like John? Do you want me to date him? Do you want to have a threesome? What is it? Once again, instead of answering, he just watched me from his stupid chair and then had the nerve to ask me who I told my suspicions to. So I said I'd been running them through my head but that my mom knew I was coming over to talk. She didn't, but he was starting to be really creepy. He got mad and said it wasn't like that, and I was making him out to be the bad guy because they were looking for something long-term, not just a one-time thing. And now that all my suspicions were 100% confirmed, I told him you can't make plans with someone else without their consent, that I would never be interested in anything with the two of them, and that I was no longer interested in anything with just him either. I started leaving and told him to never contact me again. The same goes for John. And he could share the message when he blocked my way out and said I had to hear him out and his side of the story. I told him I didn't want to nor care to, and that he needed to let me leave because my mom was expecting me in the next half hour. He started getting frantic, saying if he could just get John over there to explain, it would all make sense. So I ran out the back door and used the garden exit to get to my car, and I locked the doors immediately. He came outside and started pounding on my windows, saying I was making a huge mistake and that I'd regret this. I was bawling in my car when I backed it up to drive away. I'm pretty sure I drove over their mailbox by accident because the back of my car has a huge dent. My car was basically out of gas, so I had to stop, even though all I wanted to do was put as much space between us as possible. Which is when I saw the dent. Right when I was about to leave. Who else would call my name but his mom? She was on her way home from the grocery store and was worried because I looked like hell warmed over. I told her about everything that just happened and got more than a few stares from other people, but F it, I guess I'm just the crazy lady at Maverick. His mom looked horrified at me and told me to stay as far away from him as possible. She told me to come sit with her in her car, where she proceeded to ask me when I met Michael, who was in high school. She figured as much and said that in middle school, he and John S.A. a girl together and had a sealed record because they were minors and didn't mean to do it. She told me how sorry she was because she said it happened so long ago that she thought he changed. She put him in therapy and thought he was better. She said if she had any idea there might have been a chance of this happening, she would have told me immediately. I just gave her a quick bye, and I'm so effing scared of everything right now. I'm going to my mom since they both know where I live. I sent a mass text out to everyone in the group detailing everything, and so far, 3 people have said they support me, so that's good, I guess. What do I even do? I'm never talking to them again. I've already blocked them both on everything I could think of, but I've been getting hidden number calls since. I'm considering going into the police station to file a harassment complaint so that it's at least documented. My mom said she's going to call my uncle, who works at the court, and see what the next best step is. Thank you, guys, so much. I don't know if I would have confronted Michael without you guys confirming how weird this was. I'm terrified but glad that I at least know what's going on now. My mom is here as my support right now, and some of the girls are coming over later tonight just to make sure I'm okay. I'm sorry if this only makes some sense. The adrenaline still hasn't left me and my hands are unsteady. I appreciate every single one of you who took time to help me out because, honestly, I think I got out just in time. Honestly, thank you, guys. Relevant comments. Lackey98. Do you think this could have been the plan all along? John tries to get with you. When you say no, he tells Mike to get with you, and that works. After a while, John tells Mike to start hyping him up. He is telling you how great he is to see if you are interested. They seem to have a toxic brothers for life friendship where they share everything. Even girls don't really care if the girl wants it or not, as long as it's what they want. You said in an early post that Michael was the more dominant one in their friendship. I don't believe that's the case. I don't think he does anything without John saying so. Mike was getting frantic, trying to explain, saying it would all make sense when John got here. I imagine he thinks John can fix anything once John says everything is fine. I imagine it has been like this since middle school. Go to the police. Tell them what they did to you, what they did in middle school. If you have any text messages, voicemails, or any evidence at all that this was what they were planning, you need to give it to the police. They've done it once. They tried with you. If you stay silent, they will do it again. OOP replied, I'm going to spend about an hour with my mom and my friend Brittany. I have screenshots of the 70+ phone calls from unknown number, and Brittany is kind of my witness to them trying to find me. I don't know what to do or say. I just really hope the police listen to what I've got to say, because I wouldn't know what to do if they just dismissed it. Miserable novel. Hey, how did it go at the police? You're not the only one predators have targeted. You're not alone, and you'll be safe in the end. This kind of thing happens to anyone. I had a sexual assault where I was the victim. I made the news because the guy was so creepy. I hope you are okay. OOP replied. It went really well, I'd say. I told them what happened and even showed them this post since my writing is better than my speaking. It's all kind of a work in progress, but they were going to talk to Michael and John before filing harassment, I guess. Fingers crossed that cops showing up at their houses scare them away. Messerschmitter, you need to file a police report ASAP. Michael and John have a dom-sub relationship where they lure women, and it has probably been going on for a very long time. In extreme cases, these become unaliving teams, if not handled correctly. OOP replied, I was planning to go in today to do that, but I'm just nervous they won't believe me. I don't know if that's something TV has put into my head or if I have no evidence, but I'm scared they'll think I'm just overreacting. Tequila Mockingbird 80. This was the first post I ever saved on Reddit to check later because I was so worried about you. I'm glad you're safe, but good God you dodged a hail of bullets there. I can't imagine how you must be feeling. But just know that there is a stranger out here thinking of you and sending you all the positive vibes. Oh, and as for his mom, I have no words for her that are allowed on here. If your kid is messed up enough to say someone in middle school, there's no fixing them. Not ever. And she knows it. That's just magical thinking or delusional thinking. And that thinking put you in an incredible amount of danger. Especially as she had allowed him and John to remain friends. OOP replied, thank you. Seriously though, she didn't find it worth telling me when they were still friends. Or when I told her how much Michael talking about John annoyed me weeks earlier. I have a hard time feeling anything but resentment toward her. Last update. I'm so sorry it took me so long to update. Life has been crazy, and between everything and the state shutting down again, I've been a mess. I went and talked to the police about getting a restraining order, but the officer I talked to said it fell into domestic violence and had me file a DVOP, and we have an unset court date to take it before a judge. I'm nervous as hell about it, but at least something is going to happen. With Michael anyway, because I didn't have a relationship with John and he never technically harassed me, there's not much I could do with him. I'm still getting a ton of blocked calls, but I'm in the process of changing my number, so that should resolve itself soon enough. I'm back in my apartment, though we've added some new safety features, and currently it's a waiting game. I have to see Michael in court at some point to tell my story, and John's gone Mia. When the police went to talk to him, he wasn't home and hasn't been as far as anyone I talked to knows. I get weird letters left at my door, but they've all been delivered by the post office, so there's not much I can do about that. It's mostly rambling about love, which gives me the creeps. I've stopped opening them at this point and keep them in the drawer for when I go to court. I have an interview for a new job, so wish me luck. My boss has let Michael in twice since I've been back, and I don't feel safe there anymore. My friends are split 80/20 now. The majority, thankfully, is with Michael and John, but now I know who I can't trust. Anyone who listened to what I had to say and still thinks I'm being irrational because I led John on has no way about it. So good riddance. Unfortunately, my mom wasn't left alone, and someone broke her front window, so the police also had to show up for that one. It's been quiet for 2 days now, and I'm not sure whether to be relieved or nervous. Does looking over your shoulder ever go away? I hope so. This feels more like a diary now than a post. I'm okay though, and my life is getting there. So once again, thanks to everyone who helped or messaged me. Relevant comments. Wizard. Love, these are clear signs of some kind of psychotic dynamic. Use the knowledge you have. They asked at a girl in high school together. Now they are getting violent, such as banging on your car window, trying to stop you from leaving, etc. No matter what, keep going back to the police station and trying to get that restraining order. Every time they call you, police station. Every time they show up at your place, police station. If you ever get something from them in the mail, don't open it. Take it straight to the police station and have them open it there. Seriously, every time you get any kind of contact from them, take it to the police. Build a very clear and distinctive paper trail indicating that they are harassing you. OOP replied, I've been writing down every time I get a call from an unknown number, and I have screenshots of all of them. I'm thinking of just changing my number, even though it would be a pain. I just wish they'd go away. Michael told Brittany that I stole money from him, so he just needed to know where I was to ask about it. She didn't tell him, but do you think if I brought her to verify how they're trying to find me, it would make my case stronger? OOP comments later on in another post. OOP's comment. Julia F. Yeah. Hey OP, I just found your older post and your update 4 months ago. Are you still okay? Is John still creeping around the places you are, or has he contacted you? I hope you are okay and never have to worry about those two again. OOP replied, Hey, John has contacted a few people, but I recently changed apartments, so there have been no incidents since. So I'm really hopeful. Thank you for asking. It was a really weird point in my life. Ananerd13. This guy doesn't know when to give up, does he? OOP replied, I think it was an ego thing that just spiraled. I'm hoping, with time, he'll move on and hopefully move away. OOP updates in the comments of the original post. Comment 1. Michael's tried to see me a few times, but every time he attempts to, it's just another thing I can write down for my court case. He technically isn't allowed near me or my place of work while we wait, but he's tried because he can't take no for an answer. Most of my friends are still with me, though, and I didn't realize how much I hoped they would be until it all calmed down and I still had them around to help me through everything. Comment 2. I got a new job and a new place to live after someone tried to break in when I was out of town. I finally got my day in court, and Michael can't be within 800 feet of me without me being able to call the police. He also can't go anywhere I typically go, which includes my new apartment building or job. The letters really helped with all that because everything else was just my word against his situation. I asked his mom to come as a witness, but she refused to talk against her son, so whatever. But yeah, basically, I'm breathing new, fresh air around here. I've seen John twice in passing, and it still gives me the creeps. He's not barred from being around me, so he makes it a point to show up in public places when he can and just hang around like the weasel he is. But the police gave him a very stern and impromptu talk when he showed up to support Michael at court. I think I'm in the clear, but they just want me to know they're still around, and sadly, there isn't much I can do to stop John anyway. My family is pressuring me to give my sister my wedding venue because she needs it more and is pregnant. My fiancé and I have been together for 8 years and engaged for 3 years. So what we did was book our dream venue 3 years in advance. It is really a beautiful venue. The only slot we got was in September of this year. My sister got engaged to her fiancé a few months ago. They were planning on having a spring wedding next year. My sister got pregnant. I was really excited to be an aunt. Yesterday, our parents invited us and our sos to a family BBQ, where my sister announced to our extended families that she was expecting. Everyone was so happy for her and my Bill, who is a great guy. My nan asked my sister if the wedding was still on the set date, or if they were going to wait because the baby would still be very young at the set date. She said no, saying that she hoped to move it to September. NBD. Nan was happy and asked her sister if she needed help planning such a short notice wedding. My sister then turned around and said, "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I was really hoping we could kind of take your venue. I really cannot stress myself out too much with planning a wedding while going to maternity classes. And I think it is so beautiful. It would really mean a lot to me." It went silent, but everyone was looking at me, expecting me to say, "Yes, of course, everything for my little sister." My Bill looked very uncomfortable, and I told her that they had talked about this and that it was not okay to put me on the spot. But my sister just said, "Don't be like that. My sister wants to do what's best for me, so it's no big deal, right?" I just said, "Well, it kind of is. I don't know. I have my heart really set on the venue." With crying, she stormed off, and my nan told me that I was being selfish because she needed the venue more than I did. I tried to defend myself, and my mother said, "You waited 3 years. Would it have unalived you to wait a few more months? When has your sister ever asked you for something?" A few comments later, my fiancé got really mad, and we left. My sister called me crying and said that it was unfair that I always get what I want, and that I could have done this one thing for her. My dad said it was just a venue, and what matters is the person you are marrying. He is a kid, right? But we have been planning for so long. So I am wondering if I am the arsehole. First update. My Bill called me and apologized for the inconvenience. He told me he had discussed it with my sister, and she had told him she would not ask. He is properly mad at her now and warned me that my sister is blaming me for potentially ruining her marriage. My father has sent me about 5 texts along the lines of, "I hope you are happy your sister hasn't stopped crying since yesterday," and so on and so on. My fiancé and I have decided to boot my sister from the bridal party and replace her with my aunt, who is the only family member who took my side. We have not decided whether or not we will invite my family as a whole. Furthermore, my mom took it upon herself to tell us. She called my fiancé's parents and told them that it would be best if my sister got it because she is pregnant, and preeclampsia runs in the family. Whatever that means. My future father-in-law told them to F off and basically ripped my mom a new one for expecting something so ridiculous and saying that they were going to lose me if they kept playing favorites. So my mom is now crying too and saying that my father-in-law is an arse. This is just getting so pathetic. It seems straight out of a bad soap opera. My in-laws are driving to us currently with some supper and wine and basically told me to not worry and that no matter what happens, they will be my safety net. I cried out of happiness. Part 3. So it hasn't been that long. But this post blew the hell up. I was expecting only a few answers, but the support was overwhelming. What boggled my mind is that this story flooded the mainstream media. But let's get to the story. So since this went viral, a lot has happened. My sister saw this story while browsing her Reddit account. She lost her mind. She accused me of painting her like a loony and misinterpreting facts. My sister got wind of the situation due to various media outlets and went on Reddit. She said that I was being unfair. She is family, and she asked nicely because she loves me. She also underlines the fact that the opinion of internet strangers doesn't count because family is more important, and I should focus on making my family happy. The only text I sent back was this: "I am sorry that you perceived it that way. I did not, in any way, distort what happened. As you might notice, I didn't describe your tone or exaggerate anything. Perhaps you have that night differently in your mind than I do, but I digress. I am sick and tired of bending to your will. My whole life, I have been your servant and your doormat. Remember all the birthdays I had to share with you because you would throw a tantrum because you didn't get presents, or when you cried so that I would fill out job applications for you. But the thing that has hurt me most till now is when you ruined my graduation. I am done. I admit that I also spoiled you, but I will not any longer. If you want to marry so badly before your baby is born, then you could look at Hotel X, which offers last-minute weddings. I have spent too much time planning my wedding to gift it to you. And if you want to ruin our relationship over this, then go ahead. I will sleep soundly and safely, knowing that it wasn't my fault. She only sent me a wow. You must love me so much. And blocked me. She unblocked me this morning to send me this. Wedding planner, hello dear. I got the message from your mother and will proceed with the rebooking of the venue on the spot. However, this will have extra costs as we have to change the names on the contract. Please come by my office tomorrow so we can sign the new contract. Sister, that's great. I'll be there at 9. My parents haven't actually written me since the thing with my father-in-law. My older brother. Yes, I have an older brother, but he lives in another city and wasn't at the BBQ. That's why I didn't mention him. Plus, he initially could not come to the wedding because of work and changed his plans after hearing about all the stories. He contacted me and wanted to know what happened because he got a weird story from mom and dad. Mom had told him that I had offered prior to the BBQ to give up the venue to my sister, and that I humiliated her. I told him what really happened, and he had no problem believing me. We talked a lot about our parents' behavior, and he confessed that his moving was partly due to our parents being, and I quote, "shtheds to us." He told me that mom had gotten wind of the post and was mad at me for betraying my family. I haven't written my parents what so many of you advised me to because I have to come to terms with the fact that they love my sister more than me, if they love me at all. The wedding. We sat together and shared passwords with the majority of our vendors and also with the venue directly. We haven't talked to our planner yet, which is why the text from my sister worries me so much. Also, we canceled the catering that my parents paid for. So in the short term, we won't be able to get full catering like we wanted to. But all our friends and my fiance's family will help us prepare a buffet, and everyone is going to chip in. That will be our bachelor party. We will have to spend more on our food now that we canceled our bachelor party, and we'll have a family and friend cooking session. Thank you again for helping me see how toxic my family is. I will try to sort it out. If they apologize from the bottom of their hearts, they will be allowed into my wedding, but if not, then, well, I still have my brother, who will be walking me down the aisle, and my aunt. Part 4. We called my planner, and she was actually really horrified. She told me she had never talked to my mother since the day we went to book the venue. She assured me that even if they were to call and say that I wanted it, I had to be present to make any changes. So we informed everyone that they would work for us on our wedding, and they offered to hire security for that day at a reduced price. Second update. A few days have passed, and we have luckily sorted many things out. Passwords are set with the vendors, security has been hired, recipes for the family and friends cookout have been chosen, and I will start therapy soon. Sadly, some upsetting things have happened as well. My sister, of course, is brigading against me on Facebook, making constant passive-aggressive remarks, saying that I made her depressed, etc. I have received many messages from her friends saying that I am a bee for treating her that way. I won't mention what happened to Bill. He wants to tell his story once he is ready. I blocked every attempt at online harassment, and my sister as well. But 2 days ago, my sister's best friends egged my car. I called the police, and my neighbor, whose hobby is to look outside the window and spy on people, identified them too. She is a grumpy lady, but she is actually very lovely once you get to meet her. Now to the part that has me fuming. After not talking to my parents for several days, they called and asked if we could talk things out. I was wary but agreed to meet them with my fiancé in our apartment. When they arrived, you could tell my mom had been crying, and I honestly felt bad for 10 whole minutes. Many of you guys said that they probably played favorites to avoid my sister's meltdowns or that she might have been diagnosed with something, and that's why they baby her. Well, no, it turns out my sister is, like many of you suspected, just an arsehole. No medical history, no diagnosis, nothing. We started chit-chatting awkwardly, then we began talking about the matter. My father first asked us why we canceled the caterers, to which my fiancé responded that we didn't want to have anything they could hold over our heads. Insert a surprised Pikachu face from both of them. Dad acted offended and said he would never do that, so I said better safe than sorry. My mother continued to call me disrespectful for talking in that manner to them. I called them disrespectful for all they had said and done over the last few days. We got into a heated argument about the venue again, to which my father repeated, "It doesn't matter where you get married, but the person you are marrying." And finally, I gave him the comeback so many of you guys wanted me to give. Yes, Dad, exactly. But isn't it weird how that only applies to me and not my sister? As long as she is marrying Bill, it doesn't matter where, right? It was super quiet, and my father was red like a tomato and gasping for air like a fish on land. My mother was quietly crying again, and I said, "Well, I am waiting for your reasoning." My father slapped his hands on the table and went on a rant about family and sacrifices and how a loving family should do what's in their power to make each other happy. I just responded, like how you tried to make me happy on my graduation day. You know, when my sister smashed my cake because she wasn't in the limelight. Quiet again. My mother quietly said, "Why do you hate us so much?" I looked at her and said, "I could ask you guys the same thing." Again, nothing. My parents knew that they had messed up, but they were not ready to admit it. My mother tried to guilt trip me, saying that my sister is miserable and that she hasn't gone out in days because people judge her so much. My father went on a tangent about how my little sister just needs more time and attention because she is the youngest, etc. So basically, excuse her behavior. I told them that I felt hurt because I now saw their blatant favoritism. They didn't even try to conceal the fact that they loved my sister more. My mother tried to say that's not true. We love you all the same. I wasn't having it. I opened a list I had written on my phone, where I had written every point I could remember about them putting my sister before me. It was a very long list. Some had dates, some were more specific situations. When I was finished, my parents were horrified, beaten, and near tears. They wanted to start explaining again how I was wrong. but I said that this conversation was leading nowhere. They either set family counseling up for us and apologized to me, or they won't be invited to the wedding. They left and haven't called since. Final update. Finally, I got around to writing an update. I am sorry that it took so long, but I have a few updates on my life. I guess, however, that you guys are mainly here to see how my wedding played out in the aftermath with my family. After I last spoke to my parents, they did not let go of their position. I was the bad guy. I was responsible for my sister's depression and her failing relationship. It went so far that I had to block them and change my number as they were contacting me from relatives' phones and so on. It was a real bummer, especially during a time that should be so special. I was harassed by my sister and her entourage on Facebook and Instagram, so I simply deleted it. It was a mentally draining time, but my husband's family and friends and my brother helped me get through it. I had basically cut off every family member that had given me SHT for keeping my wedding day. My Nan came to my door a few days before the wedding, begging to let her come. I had a long talk with Nan, and she ended up apologizing, even though she still failed to see the logic in switching weddings. But she did not want to pressure me and wanted to be there for me. We hugged it out, but our relationship is not back to normal yet. The bachelor party was amazing. We were cooking until dawn, and everything turned out to be delicious. My husband made a beautiful 3-layered cake. Wedding day. The morning was really good and relaxing. My bridesmaids and I got ready, and we drank some Prosecco, made pictures. My dress fit perfectly, and I just looked gorgeous. But then it came time to leave for the ceremony. We were at the venue taking before pictures with my friends when I saw the little car of my sister approaching the venue. Obviously, I was SHTing my pants, or, well, my dress. One of my friends ran to the venue to get one of the security people that we hired. I really didn't want another Hulk smash moment at my wedding. She had been angry and crying, and as soon as she saw me, she started screaming obscenities. Apparently, I am a filthy bee that made her fiancé break up with her. She was like possessed, and at that moment, I couldn't help but feel pity for her. Something to explain is that in the mornings, the plants are always watered at the venue by some of these sprinkler systems. Thus, the earth was a bit muddy. The next thing happened really fast. My sister bent down to take the mud and was getting ready to throw it at me in my dress when my maid of honor sprinted towards her and pushed her so that she fell with her butt into the flowers. The security officer arrived seconds later and removed her. And with that, I had enough ammunition to file for a restraining order against her. I didn't even want to file a police report at this point. I just wanted her to stay away from me. The rest of the day was just amazing. I married my best friend, the love of my life, and just my rock. My brother walked me down the altar. We all cried at the vows. It was just spectacular. Of course, I missed my parents, but it is what it is. The celebration was very funny. My husband had studied choreography to a Taylor Swift song with his groomsmen, and the speeches could have been from a stand-up club. We left for our honeymoon, and when we came back, I decided to start looking for jobs in a different city. I didn't want to lose my friends, but I just felt like I needed a clean break. I got a new job at a university in a bigger city, and we are currently in the process of moving. But maybe the biggest change, and also the most cliché change, is that I am pregnant. It is a classic honeymoon baby. We haven't really told anybody now in fear of something happening. So you nice people on Reddit are the first ones to know, besides my husband and me. I am so excited that I am tearing up just writing this. This was not something we planned for a few years, but we are ecstatic regardless. I have only heard through people in town about the rest of my family. My sister is still going around telling people that I was the reason Bill broke up with her, and that I was trying to dox her or something. She has moved in with my parents again and refuses to work. Nan told me that the last time she saw my parents, they looked exhausted because my sister was behaving like a baby. I guess their parenting is catching up with them. I can only say that I am really happy right now. It hurts to have lost family, but at the end of the day, cutting out toxic people is the best I can do. I now have a husband and a honeymoon baby on the way. My very own family and a shiny backbone. Thank you, Reddit, for reassuring me that I was indeed not being selfish, and that my family was not in the right. Thank you so much for just writing your comments and supporting me. I even took up therapy, but I have to say I am really enjoying life. Thank you for everything. Final comment. Thank you, lovely people, for supporting me during these last few months. Even those of you who accuse me of making up BS, take it or leave it. To answer some questions, I do not know when or if Bill will ever tell his story. My sister's baby is okay. When she fell onto a soft bed. The other question I got was how far along my sister was when this happened. I am not really sure, but this was in September, so she was less than 3 months pregnant when that happened, so Barley is showing if that gives you an estimate. Of course, I kept going with my wedding after that happened. I was not going to sulk over what happened. Did I miss a question? Also, I am done with trying to post on Reddit, so this will be the last of me and this whole thing. Thank you so much for the support of this community. Happy holidays, my dudes. Bonus, OP mentioned in a comment that her sister is a spoiled brat and shared another story with Reddit about how her sister went berserk at OOP's graduation because the attention was not on her. Hulk smash graduation cake. OC. Some people asked me for the graduation story I talked about in my last post. And as I am sick and bored out of my mind, I will tell you the story. This wasn't too long ago, so I remember it quite well. It was the day I delivered my thesis and presented it. A German tradition is that once you complete your PhD, you get one of those black graduation caps that have pictures, memes, and little toys that describe you best glued to them. So I also got something that I absolutely loved. One of the things glued to my cap were gummy worms because I would eat them constantly. We had booked a little hall at the university to celebrate. My fiancé and friends had decorated it and provided coffee, snacks, drinks, etc. Also, my fiancé had crafted a beautiful cake. Really beautiful cake. So eventually, after snacking, talking, and even dancing a bit, it was time for the speeches. My friends and my boss said how proud they were, etc. And then came my fiancé. He talked about all my accomplishments in life up to this point. My sister absolutely lost it. I mean, she screamed and cried like I had unalived her cat. My mom was giving my boyfriend signs to stop his speech, and he went running toward my sister. My father was already kneeling beside her, calming her down. Everyone was kind of lost at this point. My mom came up to me and asked me to give a little speech, mentioning the accomplishments of my sister and all that. I asked why. My mom told me about her being rejected from her master's program and that was the reason for her breakdown. I suppose I looked annoyed because my mom snapped and said, "You know what? Forget it." She then told my dad, who had managed to calm my sister down, to take her home. My dad took her by the arm, and they started to walk out. And Holly, as my sister noticed the cake, she lost it again. She was crying like a maniac, and then she smashed my effing cake. Everyone went silent. My dad dragged my sister out without so much as apologizing. My mom just muttered, "My poor baby." Then I started crying. My friends and fiancé went to cheer me up, but my mom was texting my dad to see if my sister was all right. She followed me to the bathroom and reprimanded me for not acting when I saw my sister crying. I told her that I was hurt by all the scenes. My mom just said that I had to understand my little sister because it was a hard time for her, and that she didn't have a fancy graduation like me. She then left. We tried to keep the celebration going, but it was not really possible. We went home early. When I went to look for my cap, I found that the gummy worm package that was glued to it had been ripped out. I later found out that was what my sister was doing because she was craving gummy worms. AITA for denying my mom from seeing my sisters. I have only just made this account so I could post this, but I've been a lurker for a while. So, this is a very complicated situation. But I'm at a loss and have been told I am both the arsehole and not the arsehole for doing this. Backstory here, I currently have full custody of both my little sisters, ages 17 years old Amy and 8 years old Lisa, while I am 29 and male. I fought extremely hard for months to get my sisters in my care too, as I come from a long line of entitled people. The kindest way I can put it. I have multiple uncles and grandparents who felt they were entitled to Amy's body, and Lisa's too once she was 10. I'd moved out of home 7 years ago, and I was honestly really slack in keeping contact with my family as I moved far away for school and work. I came back to visit just under 6 years later, and in my situation, I came home to find my parents were allowing Amy to be physically abused. To put out a sliver of it out there, they would use her allergies to torture her into compliance. So I did what was necessary and got Amy and Lisa put in my custody. If you want the whole story, I might put it in entitled parents, but that part isn't what this sub is for. Now, for the title of my post. A few weeks ago, my mom contacted me through Facebook, asking to meet me and only me for a talk. I obliged and met with my mom. She explained she was divorcing my father and cutting ties with his family, the side of my family that was allowing this to happen. She explains that after she got pregnant with me, she felt forced to marry my father, how she never wanted that life for my sisters, and how she wanted to mend her relationship with Amy, who still has an array of issues from her treatment. And I gave her a flat-out no. She would never see Amy or Lisa again. And if she tried, I would get a restraining order, as everything I've heard from Amy showed that my mom never even felt concerned for her health or well-being during the time I was away. Am I the arsehole for wanting to keep her out of my sister's life? Edit, this is coming up a lot, but Amy is still in regular therapy and delicate when it comes to that time. It's still a daily thing she experiences. Lisa was never hurt. She was being groomed into obedience, but things would have changed when she turned 10, as they did for Amy. Lisa was in therapy for a few months, but it was decided she didn't need it long term, like Amy. How I started a revolution in my entitled family. All I wanted were my sisters. I posted part of this in r. Am I the arsehole as a recent conflict. It left me doubting myself, but due to so many people's interest, I've decided to elaborate on my family's boundless entitlement here. I am currently in custody of my two little sisters, Amy, who is 17, and Lisa, who is 8. Not their real names for obvious reasons. I am a 29-year-old male, and we live in Australia. I am Potato, as that's what Lisa calls me, and this is basically the story of how my family felt they were entitled to both of my sisters' body, and I wouldn't stand for that. I would like to warn anyone who has faced a use in the past, as parts of their story may trigger some people. To anyone who has faced a use in the past, I do feel deeply sorry for you. The main part of the story takes place about a year ago. I'd moved out 6 years ago and moved to another state for work and study. I was honestly really slack with keeping contact with my family, which is probably why this went on so long. When I do think back to the time before I moved out, I didn't treat Amy the best, and if I hadn't moved out and had so little contact with my family, I may have turned out just as entitled and as horrible a person. I came back to visit for a grandparent's birthday. After spending so long away, I spent the morning catching up with aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents, of course, and Lisa. This was actually the first time I'd really realized the oddities in my family. Perhaps it was the change in environment. A few of my roommates had little sisters and whatnot, after all. But it was the first time I'd noticed how quiet the little girls in my family were. I guess I'd always just thought of Amy as shy and quiet, but my little cousins were so much the same: polite, shy, quiet, and obedient. At the time, I brushed this off. After a few hours, I realized that Amy was nowhere to be seen all day. The party was at my parents' house, so this confused me, and I slipped inside to see if she was cooped up in her room like a lot of 16-year-olds would be, talking to friends or doing assessments. What I found is a memory that will haunt me forever. My oldest uncle was on my father's side, laying over my sister, who was quite clearly in a lot of pain and struggling not to cry as he pinned her beneath him. I completely lost it, as any brother would, shouting at him to get her out of her room. I scared the hell out of both of them, but in that moment, I was honestly ready to end my uncle. Amy was pretty messed up in the head when I tried consoling her. She was covered in scars and had a rash that I later found out was an allergic reaction. She was allergic to strawberries. She didn't speak and looked at me as if she expected me to hurt her too. Her room was dimly lit, the blinds taped close to her wall, and all the things she'd had when I left were gone, leaving her bedroom feeling cold and empty. To add insult to injury, she was a month pregnant. When I demanded an explanation from my parents, they said that it was my uncle's right. And my father simply pointed out one of my 11-year-old cousins sitting quietly with her parents and told me to have fun. I stormed off back to Amy's room, quietly packed her a bag of necessity, and managed to sneak her out of the house and into my car before doing the same with Lisa. Part of me wanted to get all my cousins out too, but my main focus was on Amy right now, who sat trembling in the back of my car. I drove them both to the closest police station to report what was happening. I'll skip most of the details of the legal battle that ensued, but my family did not take kindly to being outed for what they were doing. It was a tradition that spanned generations, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with tradition. Amy and Lisa were put into temporary foster care. Amy was a wreck. To her, everyone could and would hurt her, and I got reports every few hours that she was having a panic attack. 3 of my uncles went to jail for a very long time. I got a fair bit of money out of a range of family members, full custody of both Amy and Lisa, no enforced visitation to their parents, and my parents had to pay for any therapy costs, medication, and medical needs for both of them. My family was torn in two by this, with many of my aunts leaving their husbands with their children after finally having the courage to follow me. Uncles who had married into the family took their wives, who had also been used and cut off ties. I still keep in contact with these members of my family, and I'm grateful for their support and glad that my cousins are safer now. Even some of the older guys who had been brought up thinking it was okay to treat women that way took themselves into counseling once they realized just how messed up it was. And I've had more than one instance where they admitted to hurting Amy and apologized, which I've accepted as these cousins did their best to take their siblings or other cousins out of harmful environments. Now, I do believe some part of the ruling protected the younger men of the family, provided they saw some form of mental health professional. As they grew up thinking that this was all normal, they didn't end up in jail, but they did end up on some list of possible sex offenders. No one is sure who fathered Amy's child, but she had her pregnancy terminated as we were told her physical and mental health would not cope with carrying a baby she ultimately would unlikely care for. She did consent at the time, and it was brought up by her psychologist once she was doing better, and she confirmed that she would have no love for the baby due to the circumstances in which she fell pregnant. For 6 years, Amy had been physically, emotionally, mentally, and physically abused in every way conceivable. This mostly came from my father's 4 brothers and brother-in-law who married into the family. My parents both stood by and let this happen, offering no support for Amy. During the case, my uncles argued it was their birthright being born into their family, and it was simply Amy's rite of passage before she was married off to one of my uncle's mates at 8. They used her allergy as a form of torture and manipulation, wanting her to be silent and obedient. They would press strawberries against her skin anytime she said a word and force her to eat them when she stepped too far out of line. A lot of my aunts from my father's side admitted to enduring this treatment, although most of them were lucky and didn't have allergies to exploit. I honestly can't even begin to explain everything that was wrong with Amy because of their behavior. Lisa, for the most part, was okay. She needed a little therapy as she was being groomed into compliance and taught that what she would experience was normal. But Amy had completely shut down. It took 2 months before I could even get her to speak. She trusts me now, and we often sit down, and I let her talk and open up about whatever she feels comfortable with. Her stories often have me struggling to hold back tears while I comfort her. I did get Amy a service dog a few months ago, tailored towards the emotional support she needs on a regular basis. Lickety Split is honestly the best of the good doggos. She knows exactly when she's needed and is a massive help when it comes to calming Amy's anxiety, especially in public. We've had more than one encounter with unrelated entitled parents thinking they or their kid deserves her dog more than her. Let me know if you want these stories published too, because I've seen people like to read about service dog related incidents, but anyone who does think that can honestly fight me. No one deserves her dog more than her. On one occasion, one of my aunts, whose husband went to jail, tried taking Lickety Split because their money paid for her. I told her if she ever came near my property again, I would call the police, as there was a restraining order against her towards both my sisters. Later, she came back and tried to poison Lickety Split with tainted meat, but one of my lovely neighbors caught her and chased her off. Police were called, and she is now in jail too after having to pay a fine and some money to me because, at this point, I'm pretty well acquainted with the legal system and have sued her. My family still tried to get my sisters out of my care, reporting me for everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. They planted drugs in an identical stuffed toy to Amy's comfort toy and left it in the yard, but Amy would never do that, so I knew something was up immediately. Home security systems work wonders. I've actually become pretty chummy with the local police officers who have to inspect their claims, but they know I'd never do anything to endanger my custody of the girls. They mean the world to me. I will admit, though, that I have done things to hurt my bond with them, like yelling when stressed and throwing things from time to time, but I'm not perfect. And Amy has told me that although these moments do scare her, she doesn't feel endangered being near me when they happen, and I also spoil them a little when they do happen. Now the reason this ended on AITA is because a few weeks ago, my mother contacted me, saying she wanted to talk. I was hesitant but agreed, and we met up in the next town over. There is no way I could be followed home. My mother explained how she was in the process of divorcing my father and how she wanted to have a relationship with me and my sisters, with an emphasis on mending her bond with Amy, who had not called her mom in years. She explained how she was pressured into marriage after she got pregnant with me and never wanted that life for her daughters. I flat out told her no, something several members of my family disagreed with, as she could have done literally anything to support Amy emotionally with what was happening, done anything to make her feel better or more secure with what was happening to her. But instead she was shunned and isolated except for when she was needed to cook, clean, or provide some sort of service to the family, even going as far as to berate her whenever she did try to confide in my mom that she was in pain or scared. Amy was well past her breaking point when I took her, and had even planned on endangling herself less than a week after my visit. My mother argued that she had the same right as the other members of my family who had left and had contact with my sister, but I told her it was because they were doing it to protect their children and themselves. They didn't wait a year after losing custody to try and fight for them, and I really don't even need to give a reason. I have custody and she does not. Members of AITA convinced me that when Amy is in a better place mentally, and Lisa is older, I bring it up with them and leave the decision in their hands. I've been told Amy will be a dependent well after she turns 18. Her mind just doesn't function properly, so there is no risk of her mother getting into contact behind my back even when she's an adult. And while Amy does have a phone and a computer, she doesn't have any social media, as she doesn't want any chance of her family trying to contact her as they've threatened her with many forms of torture in the past. This story doesn't have a slam dunk ending. I have my sisters, and they're in a safe environment where they'll get to grow up as kids. Amy is getting the help she needs and is slowly making her way out of the tower she built to protect herself in the only way she could, but she knows there isn't a rush to come out. I'll work with her at the pace she sets. She's still discovering her own interests, but it's quite like just reading a book with a form of fruity tea. She also has a small collection of stuffed animals that she adores and takes with her everywhere. She is sensitive to texture, so the feeling is a comfort for her. And once a week we sit down to try to find older bears she likes. We only have 3 Build-A-Bears on her wish list, and honestly, I've loved helping Amy discover herself. She lost a lot of her ability to think and feel for herself during this time. And watching her find her favorite book genre or her favorite types of music is a great feeling, knowing how far she's come, and I live for the days she actually manages a smile. I'd be willing to answer most questions, so if you want to know anything, just ask, as I want to bring awareness to the fact that these things are still happening to other kids, but obviously something I'd rather keep to myself for the sake of the girls. The entitled family feels they have a right to do what they want with my little sister's body. After I get custody, my mother believes she still has a right to see them. Edit. First off, thanks for the awards. It means a lot, and thank you for everyone offering their kind words and support. It's honestly really difficult this past year, and at times I really do struggle, but I have to stay strong because my 2 little girls depend on me so much, and the support everyone has shown is truly the best. Some extra notes. Amy was pulled out of school at 10, a few months after I left home. She was kept isolated in her room and had very little meaningful contact. Also, I'm not going to share a photo of Lickety Split as she is a very recognizable dog, and not everyone who has contact with Amy and her dog knows the full story. So I'd rather not draw links between this story and her real day life, as she struggles with it enough. Edit 2. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you for all the awards, and I'm sorry if I don't get back to some people. Also, I'm meeting back up with my mother later to talk to her about the possibility of seeing the girls in the future. Once Amy is a lot more stable and Lisa is old enough to understand what I saved her from, and the decision will be entirely theirs. Edit 3. Answering the commonly asked questions to save myself from repeating. Yes, I was groomed, but much differently. I was taught I could treat the woman in my family however I wanted. But I was never really a violent person or sexually driven. I was a jerk, and although I have anger issues at times, taking it out on other people is not something I ever saw effective. My focus was more on my studies. Some of the other men in my family were the same and were never really abusive. Unfortunately, it never really clicked in my head that if I was being taught that, what were they teaching my sisters behind my back? I blame myself for how long Amy suffered and do my best to make amends for it by showing her love, which no one else cared to do. I am in therapy too, and I work closely with Amy's therapist too, so don't worry about my mental well-being. I'm looking after me too. And for those mentioning BS because I didn't go into detail about all the legal details, I would go days on just a few hours of sleep during the whole legal battle because I would be looking into every detail I could to know how to help my sisters. Most of it is a messy blur. I also didn't feel many people would care to listen, and I had to chop loads out of my story and still have people say it was too long. The story is unbelievable, I get that, and I wouldn't want to believe it either. You don't need to say it, though, just downvote and move on. I don't care what you choose to believe. Amy was pulled out under the premise that she was being homeschooled. I'm not sure how it worked from there. I was never homeschooled, and I didn't homeschool the girls. I'm not sure how my family got around DOCs or anything like that. I just know it worked for 6 years. EK attacks my sister's service dog because M doesn't think she needs it. This incident happened a few months ago. For context, for those who haven't read my other 2 posts, my sister was physically and sexually abused by my family. I took custody of both her and my other sister, who was being groomed into thinking that behavior would be normal when it started for her. Lisa is fine now and has adjusted to living with me properly, while Amy has a long list of physical and mental impairments that affect her daily. Because of this, I got her a service dog, a German Shepherd crossbred named Lickety Split. She has a funny-shaped mark that looks like an ice cream cone on her head, and her trainers named her after one of my really old little ponies. Now that Amy adores her dog, we spent a few months working with the trainer to get Lickety Split tailored to Amy's needs, such as strangers needing to respect Amy's personal space bubble. Something I hear from people is how they struggle not to pat service dogs because they need to let them know they're a good dog, but trust me, their people let them know. Lickety gets groomed daily by Amy, and they never go out without a pocket full of treats. I have 3 different stories of entitled parents and kids thinking they deserve Amy's dog more than her, and to save this from being one super long post, I'm going to share them separately. The first happened less than a month after we got the illness split. We were down at a local park that allowed off-leash dogs, letting our dog have a run around. and she didn't have her vest on as this was playtime for her. But I had it with me just in case she needed to go into service mode for my sister, which wasn't uncommon. I make an effort to get down to the park with Amy and Lisa daily because otherwise Amy would just hide away in her blankets any chance she got, and it was good to be out in public and get the fresh air. We were playing fetch with Lickety Split, taking turns throwing the ball for our happy doggo. Amy starts getting a bit antsy about an hour into our normally 2-hour walk, which happens. There isn't always a reason. She just gets fidgety and spooks easily, and I'd learned to recognize when she's distressed ages ago. So we called Lickety Split back and I helped her into her vest, as when she's not wearing it, kids often come up to pat and join in the play. But when Amy gets anxious, it's better to have Lickety Split have her attention on Amy. A young child, maybe 9-ish, she was definitely older than Lisa, comes up with her mom, who had one of those obviously fake smiles on her face. She didn't have the typical "can I speak to the manager" haircut, but one of those "I feel like I'm better than you and will make sure you know it" like haircuts. She will be our Karen, and her daughter will be our little Susie. Karen, why did you stop playing? Susie here was enjoying watching you play with your dog. She was actually just asking me to let her play with it, and I said yes. So would you mind giving her the ball? Me with a friendly smile. I'm sorry, miss. Our dog is an emotional support dog, and she needs to look after my sister right now. I'm not sure why you said your child could play with her dog. I most certainly wouldn't tell my girls it was okay for them to play with things. As I explained this, I moved to stand between her and Amy, who is sitting on the ground with her attention on her dog and trying to ground herself. I am very protective over both my sisters, so I leave no room for her to get near Amy, who is now on the ground, breathing heavily. While Lickety Split does her job while telling Lisa to sit with her big sister and help her if she needs it, as sometimes Amy needs help to calm down. Karen, that's not a real thing. Your sister isn't blind. She doesn't need a dog working for her. If you're going to be lazy, at least let my child play with the mud. Me, guide dogs aren't the only type of service dog I miss. My sister had a dog to help with her anxiety and other mental health issues. She has her vest on now, so disturbing our dog is illegal as she needs to have her attention on my sister. Karen, dogs shouldn't be made to work for people. It's wrong that you've enslaved that poor animal. Me, miss, our dog isn't enslaved. She's simply been taught how to recognize when my sister needs help or needs to calm down. Even I went through courses to help me learn how to best cater to my sister. Our dog is treated as an extension of the family and enjoys helping my sister. Now we need to get home so I can get my sister dinner. As I turn to my sisters, I see Susie trying to grab Lickety's tail. Lisa simply plops herself down at her rear with her back to little Susie and begins patting her sister's dog's back. Deciding I'd had enough and there was no way Amy was going to calm down here, I started to pack up the girls to take them home, despite it being an hour earlier than normal. I turn around and help Amy off the ground. She's in tears and shaking at this point and won't let go of Lickety Split, who is in her alert mode due to my sister's mood. Lisa complains about having to go home early as I clip on Lickety Split's lead and hold Amy close, letting her hold on to part of the lead while I hold the handle out of caution. Read too many stories on Reddit. As we start to walk off, little Susie leaps forward and tackles our dog. Amy screams and crouches on the ground with her hands over her head in a frantic panic while I push the kid away. Lickety Split, who is limping and whining but still goes straight for Amy and stands over her. By now, she is quite angry and growling, and Karen and Susie are scaring her and hurting her. The child is crying at how I pushed her off the doggy she really, really wants, and all she wanted was a ride on her back. Note that this kid was almost twice the size of Lickety Split. Karen then comes up to me, practically foaming at the mouth. Karen, hand over that mutt right now, or I am reporting you for S-ing my child. Me, miss, my sisters are in my care because they were abused by their family. Report me for doing anything that could result in me losing them, and I will sue you for slander. Now, your child hurt my sister's dog, so we're going to the vet. May I have your details so I can send you the vet bill? As I say this, I point to the nearby toilet block with a security camera on the side. I'm sure the whole thing is on tape. Karen, with a look of dumbfound anger over her features, reluctantly gives me her number before she takes her child and dashes. But I make sure to also write down the plate number of her car before calling the police, just in case she does make the ESSA claim. I am very cautious when it comes down to the custody of my siblings, as I don't trust most of my family with them, and losing custody over them would kill me. We take Lickety Split to the vet, and she only has minor sprains to her hind legs and back. I made sure to send the details of the vet bill to Karen, and surprise, she refused to pay until I threatened to take her to court as Lickety Split and all her training were not cheap. Typically here in Australia, they can cost anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000, and while I won't say exactly how much she cost, it was on the latter end of the spectrum and she is worth every penny. After a little back and forth, she reluctantly pays before contacting me 3 days later, saying she is going to sue me for the money back. And I simply tell her I'll see her in court. It's been about 7 months now and nothing. I've never understood how people can think they're entitled to other people's pets. While I didn't mind buying Lickety Split for Amy, she was a lot more expensive than regular dogs, and Karen didn't even believe she was specially trained. Our dog is doing fine now, and it's a massive load off me having her, as I don't feel the need to hover over Amy to make sure she's okay. But please remember never to disturb a service dog. Their attention needs to be on their person. This is the milder of my 3 stories. The other 2 needed the police to get involved. Entitled family attempts to dog nap my sister's service dog. So, this is the second of my 3 encounters with entitled parents that relate to my little sister's service dog. Sorry it took so long to get out. More issues with my mom have risen lately, and I am a single potato caring for 2 needy tater tots. I do have 2 other stories, the first of which explains how I came into custody of my beautiful little sisters after my parents were allowing the elder of 2 to be physically, mentally, and sexually abused for 6 years. And the other is a brief encounter with entitled parents who didn't believe my sister needed a service dog because she has mental illness. I'll link them at the bottom for convenience. I'm also far from the best storyteller as well as the best writer in general, so bear with me, it's also long. I'll be using the same false names for my sisters that I've used for all my other stories. Amy, who is 17, and Lisa, who is 8. I'm their older brother, and I'm 29. This all takes place in Australia. As briefly mentioned in my other M story, I do my best to get Amy outside for at least an hour a day. And this normally involves taking her service dog for a leisure walk as a family, which she enjoys and is accustomed to at this point. On this particular day, a new playground had just opened up nearby, so I thought it might be fun to take my girls somewhere different. And as Amy likes to play fetch with Lickety Split, her service dog, who is a cross between a purebred German Shepherd and a mutt, a mixture of several different breeds, this one specifically bred with calmer, easier to train temperaments, I made sure to look into the rules regarding off-leash dogs. As a service dog, she's allowed pretty much everywhere if she has a lead and vest on and isn't disturbing the peace. There was a nearby field where off-lead dogs were permitted, but the area around the playground only allows off-lead dogs, which is normal for my area. So, armed with doggy doo-doo bags, sunscreen, water, and a Lickety Split's vest and lead, we drive down to the new park. New areas do make Amy anxious, so we walk around a bit to help her get an understanding of where everything. And during this time, Lickety Split has her vest and lead on, dutifully walking at Amy's pace like the best doggo she is. There are quite a few little kids around, and we don't want them distracting her, but most seem to understand what Lickety Split's vest means. However, one kid in particular, whom we'll dub Leg, little entitled girl, does approach and ask to play with Lickety Split. Amy has selective mutism. She can't talk in certain situations. I take the duty to explain that Lickety Split is working right now and can't be distracted, but I point to the field and say we might be playing there later if Amy feels up to it. She normally doesn't mind other people throwing the ball as long as they don't actually touch Lickety Split or her. Leg huffs and says that dogs are for playing, not working. I ask her if she's ever seen police dogs on TV or anything, to which she hesitantly replies yes, and I explain that those are different types of working dogs. Lickety Split's job is to take care of my sister because she gets frightened very easily, and her dog makes sure she doesn't get hurt if she gets scared. The Leg then turns to Amy, who is getting a bit fidgety and keeps tugging on my shirt, her silent signal that she wants to move away from this, while Lickety Split is in her alert stance. The Leg then throws her arms up and shouts boo, which of course causes her to jump and hide behind me, starting to cry. Amy, even to this day, is very timid and doesn't cope well in strange environments with loud noises and sudden movements towards her. The Leg starts laughing and calls Amy retarded. Lisa, who is very protective of her big sister, then pushes the girl and scolds her for being mean, and I decide that we've all had enough of this girl and hurry my sisters along so we can find somewhere for Amy to calm down in peace. We find an area out of sight from the Leg, and I sit Amy down on a bench in the shade where I can work towards calming her down before deciding if we should just go home. Thankfully, she wasn't too bad as far as her anxiety attacks go. She was just breathing heavily and hot, and she was crying quietly. I asked her if she wanted to go home, but she declined and asked that we just stay away from Leg because Lisa still wanted to play in the playground and said she didn't want Lickety to split off her lead. I'm hesitant but agree, knowing that because Amy is trying to overcome her anxiety, she does sometimes want to push herself out of her comfort zone, and I would just have to keep a close eye on her and make sure she isn't pushing herself too far. The next little while is quiet, Lisa playing in the playground while Amy and I sit in the shade with Lickety Split laying beneath the bench and Amy reading a book. As you'd expect, more kids came to ask to give pats to our dog, but I politely turned them away with no issues, no Leg, or so I thought. Leg comes running up to Amy and me with her mother in tow, jabbing her finger at me while blabbering about animal abuse. Now, most of my attention was on my sister rather than what this lady was saying, so the conversation isn't exactly word for word. This also took place months ago. The mother looks me up and down as if I had no business being in the area, as she asks if Lickety Split is my dog. I explain how Lickety Split is in my name, but she is registered as Amy's service dog. In Australia, if you are under 18, parents or guardians are considered the owners of dogs, even if a registered service dog is serving a minor when she turns 18. Lickety Split's ownership will be transferred to Amy. The parent gave me a look as if she had hit her child. She then snarls at me something along the lines of how dare you make an innocent animal work and brainwash it into being able to do nothing more than follow your demand. I just shrug and tell her that she's entitled to that opinion and ask her to leave as she was upsetting Amy. She then demands I hand the dog over to her, as a dog as spectacular looking as mine should not be forced into slavery. I give her a simple nope and wave her off, and she leaves with her daughter complaining about how she wants a dog that is well behaved enough to sit like Lickety Split is. About half an hour passed, and we were packing up to leave. Amy quietly asks if we can throw the ball just a little for Lickety Split because she doesn't feel it's fair for her dog to miss out on the fun. So we head back to the field, remove Lickety Split's lead and vest after checking Leg or her mother weren't around. Side note, her dog tags also say that she is a service dog, as well as have my name, address, and phone number on them, and this will be important later. And we begin a small session of fetch with Lickety Split, taking turns throwing the ball as we usually do. Now the park is set up, so the field is right next to the car park with a row of bushes separating the two, and the area we were standing in had a few trees shading some picnic tables. As Lisa is taking her turn to throw the ball, it hits a tree and bounces through the bushes. Lickety chases after it, and I tell my sisters to stay put while I follow, just to make sure she doesn't end up on the road. Despite Lisa's throw not being too hard, Lickety Split wasn't directly behind the bushes like I thought she'd be. In fact, I couldn't immediately find her after passing the bushes. I looked around for a moment before hearing Lickety Split's distressed barking and bolting into the car park, finding a family of 5 attempting to wrestle Lickety Split into the back of their car. The family including Leg, her mother, father, a boy, and an older girl, apparently the oldest. The father was holding Lickety Split's jaw shut while the children were attempting to move her into the trunk of the car. My dog was not making it easy for them, and since the mother seemed to refuse to get close and the father was fighting to keep her head under control, they were struggling quite a bit. I yelled at them to let Lickety Split go, and several things happened in quick succession. The EF lost his grip on Lickety Split's head while the 2 girls jumped back, leaving B holding her hind legs off the ground. Lickety Split barked several times before the EF again tried to hold her muzzle, which she responded to by biting his arm and flinging herself at the boy, snapping at him until she managed to land a bite on his ankle and bolt to my side. I grabbed her collar and yelled several obscenities at the family for attempting to steal my dog. At this time, a security man arrived, explaining how someone had reported an incident and asking what was going on. At this time, Amy and Lisa had also come looking for me, most likely hearing the barking and yelling as well as just wondering why I was taking so long. Amy was on the brink of a panic attack, and Lickety strained against my grip to get to Amy, so I let her go, telling Amy and Lisa to quickly put her vest and lead back on. The father is now yelling at the SM at how they found what they had assumed was an abandoned dog that they were planning on taking to a shelter to adopt the poor thing when I appeared and beat the dog until she was so scared it bit him and his son. And he now demanded the dog be put down immediately. The SM looks over the Lickety Split, who was taking a defensive stance in front of my sisters and snarling at the family, before looking at me and asking what my side of what happened was. Thinking this could take a while, I ask him to hold on a moment while I move my sisters and Lickety Split off the road and into the shade. Amy is having a panic attack at the prospect of her dog being put down and is sobbing for me to protect her dog. At this point, I just wanted to get her home, where it was much easier to calm her down, so I turned back to the SM and the family and explained the misthrown ball, how I'd come to make sure my dog didn't end up on the road, and how I found the family attempting to steal my sister's service dog when the M interrupted, screeching, "That's proof he uses the dog. No dog should be made to work." The SM then pauses before he states that his grandma has a guide dog because she's going blind. Pause from the family. SM turns to the kids and asks if they were trying to move the dog in the car. The older girl confirms this. SM then asks if they waited to see if anyone claimed the dog. The girl shook her head, and the M then claimed the dog had no tags. I point out Lickety Split's beautiful handmade, bright purple and blue collar, stating it has my phone number and address on it. before asking SM if I could take my sisters home. I didn't even care about pressing charges for the attempted dog napping. I just wanted to get Amy home, as she was really struggling to calm down. Thankfully, SM understood, took my details, and explained that this would most likely go to the police as my dog had bitten 2 people. I wasn't too worried about this as my state law says that if a dog bites or attacks someone, it would be put down unless it was provoked to do so. He would make sure to save all security footage as evidence, as he could clearly see I cared for my dog and family. He let me go but warned me that Lickety Split must be kept in my name and her residence can't change, or it would have worse legal repercussions. I assured him we weren't going anywhere before ushering my sisters to my car to get home. I left the car park and drove to another at a sports field close by before trying to calm Amy down, going through our normal method of grounding her before giving cuddles and talking her down from her panic attack. She's still shaky when I pull away, but I wanted to get her home where she could lie down and relax. So she just cuddled the toy she had brought and her dog the whole way home while crying softly. Amy normally sits in the back seat with Lickety Split and Lisa no matter where we are going. We ended up ordering from a restaurant for dinner and watching a movie together snuggled up on the pull-out lounge. The girls both fell asleep there, and I let them be. This was before Amy was back in school, but I took the next day off from her tutoring and worked from home since she was still upset. The police did get in contact with me about Lickety Split biting 2 people, but they confirmed they had seen the security footage and agreed that the situation had provoked Lickety Split to do so. There is also a whole court procedure where the family was adamant the attack was unprovoked and they were just trying to help what they thought was a stray dog. But one of the cameras caught a very clear display of Lickety Split collar, which has my phone number. Not to mention, Em and Leg had seen me and my sister twice that day, which the cameras had also caught. The parents were fined and given community service, and since I just wanted it to be over, I didn't press further, but we haven't been back to that park since. Hey Redditors, sorry the wait was so long. I've been having issues with my mom over the girls and just been generally busy lately, so this may be a little rushed. It did affect Amy for a few days, but after plenty of assurance her dog would be fine, she calmed down over it, but she is very selective over who touches Lickety Split now. I've had a lot of people asking for ways they can help, offering to send things, and so much more. I'd like to say that while the offer of sending things is a sweet one, Amy is extremely fussy when it comes to her toys, the ones she plays with, and even about what stays in her room as she gets scared of random things. A lot of what she does get in gifts off other people is money, and gift cards as she likes picking things out herself. I am in no way asking for these things. We are also very well off at this point. A mate helped me get a job in the field I was studying in that at the time I was in no way qualified for, but kudos to him. And it pays more than enough to support my little family. Couple that with therapy costs covered by our parents as well as the support payments they have to pay means we all live comfortably. If you feel like doing something nice or supportive for us, donate towards a charity that helps prevent child abuse, support groups for victims or anything like that, because while we are fine but a lot of children are and are in need of safe places to live, and putting money towards these causes is the best way to do something nice for us. That being said, one of Amy's favorite mobile games now has the feature of adding friends. Not a lot of people in her school play it, so I told her I'd ask. So if you play Merge Dragons and feel like adding her, Amy's tag is WUHDAIJM, and she will add anyone as she enjoys looking at different parks. Update. Sorry I've disappeared on everyone. Things got super busy over Christmas and the past few months in general, and I haven't even logged onto Reddit in a while. The thought came to me the other day, so I thought I'd give everyone curious enough to follow an update on myself and the girls. First off, we're all doing great. Amy's therapy has been going well, and she's becoming more comfortable in social settings. She still has selective mutism, but it's been improving. She's now officially a completely healthy kid in physical terms, having completed the last of her medical procedures and physiotherapy at the end of January. She had a lot of issues with her bones initially, as well as being malnourished, but that's all fixed now. She's showing a lot more emotion, actively seeks out and shows affection towards those she trusts, and has far fewer nightmares than she did a few months ago. Amy still needs regular therapy, but her therapist has been praising her progress. Her schoolwork has also been going well. I've had a few people ask how Amy keeps up, and to put it simply, she doesn't. Amy's main focus at school is to learn to socialize. There is no pressure for her to keep up grades or do well in tests. That stuff can be worked on later. And even her teachers give her easier work despite already being 2 years below her age-appropriate age. Lisa is doing well in school too. She seems to have taken after me since she is very smart and near the top of her grade. I'm very proud. Since my last update here, I've sat down with her and gone a bit more into detail about what was happening when she was with her parents. She started requesting to see them again, and if it were up to me, that would never happen. It's her right to make a choice once she's old enough. I'll slowly tell her more about what was happening, and not until she has the whole story will I let her choose if she wants to have supervised visits with her parents. I've finished my studies for my field of work and got promoted pretty quickly once qualified, which allows me to work at home more often and be able to spend more time with my girls. For those who ask, yes, I do call them my girls, why wouldn't I? I've also fixed a lot of my anger issues, and it's been quite a while since my last outburst. Some people I saw were concerned about that. We've also moved towards the end of September, and since then we've had no negative confrontations with entitled parents. The girls still go to the same school, and our new house has a bigger backyard, which Lickety Split loves. She's doing very well too. That's about all the important information I can think of right now. I'm happy to answer more questions in the comments. Thank you everyone for the support, and I'll hopefully get around to the last story of entitled parents being entitled over Lickety Split soon. Message from Amy. Hi readers. I wanted to say thank you for being friendly and helpful with my brother and saying nice things to Lisa and me. Potato would read them to us and tell us how many people wished us well, and it was very nice of everyone. Thank you for being nice, and I hope you all have a nice day or night. It's nighttime now, and I'm going to bed now. Coronavirus update. To the few who have asked and those who didn't, we're all fine here. We self-isolated a while ago since Amy's immune system isn't the best under regular circumstances. My girlfriend is doing our shopping for us, and the girls and I have submerged ourselves in the world of hot chocolate and Animal Crossing. My own sister made false accusations against me because I refused to supply alcohol for her party. This happened some years ago. I'm in my 30s now, but back then, I was 22. My sister was 18 and was my mom's golden child. My dad, thankfully, has a good head on his shoulders and has always called my sister out on her SHT. But my mom's interference always meant my sister got off easy anyway. This is what happened back then. My parents decided to take a vacation to ski in Aspen and let my sister watch the house for them. They told her no parties, but that was a rule she straight up ignored. A day after our parents left, my sister started sending out invitations to a party, and she was promising free alcohol. I didn't see that post just yet, but my sister called me and asked me to go get alcohol for her party because I was over 21 and could legally buy it. She also wanted me to pay for it and said she'd invite me to the party and introduce me to an easy girl in order to pay me back. I told her that I wasn't going to break the law to make her happy. She should never have told people her party would have alcohol. She screamed at me over the phone that I was ruining her life, and that she couldn't take back the invites now that they were all over her Facebook. I looked at her post and face-palmed. I told her that what she did was really stupid, and she and her friends were all underage, so it's illegal. She tried to say it'd only be illegal if I narrated to them. I said I wouldn't narc, but I wasn't going to buy her booze either. She screamed at me some more, so I hung up the phone. Well, that night, my sister had the party, and someone called the police for underage drinking. After being arrested and confronted by police later on, my sister threw me under the bus and said that I'd supplied the alcohol she was using. It turns out she actually broke into my dad's liquor cabinet and thought it'd be better to frame me for her crime. The police came and arrested me at my apartment the day after the party. They seemed already convinced I was guilty, and they didn't really listen to me when I said I was never there. But I willingly cooperated with them. At the station, I told them the whole story and got them to look at my sister's Facebook post. Thankfully, there were a few people there who listened to me, but I still had to sit the night out in a cell while my parents were called. My mom and dad flew back home overnight and bailed out both my sister and me. But my mom tried to make my dad leave me in jail because my sister had told them her lies as well. But my dad took the time to talk to me and look at my sister's Facebook, so he believed me. This caused a fight between him and my mom. When they got home, my dad discovered my sister had broken into his liquor cabinet and spoke to the police on my behalf. My mom, however, still wanted the blame to fall on me because, as she put it, the charges were ruining her baby's future. But my innocence was further proven by the fact that I and my car were seen on CCTV when I left work, and when I arrived at home soon after, the apartment I was living in then had CCTV cameras to watch the parking lot. My car did not move from there for the rest of the day and night. In my sister's story to the police, I had driven out and gotten the alcohol for her. But I wasn't seen on CCTV in any liquor store in the county, and my bank account showed no transactions buying alcohol. My parents' house also had a camera at the front door, and my car was never seen in the driveway that day. After being confronted with those facts, my sister's story changed to saying I already had the alcohol and gave it to her at my apartment. But my sister's car had never shown up at my apartment either. And there were like 3 cheap beers in my apartment fridge and no hard alcohol. My sister finally had to give up on her lies, and my parents were severely disappointed in her. But my mom still tried to convince me to take the fall for my sister. She came to my apartment and actually demanded that I tell the police that it was all my fault. I said I wasn't going to ruin my future for my sister. She refused to leave and went from demanding to begging. She even got on her knees and tried to convince me that she and my dad would make everything okay in the long run if I just took the blame now. I said I'd rather live my life poor than have that felony on my record. She threw a huge fit and started throwing things because I refused to do as she wanted. I threatened to call the police, and she left my apartment, cussing me out like a mad woman. I've never heard so many F-bombs out of her before or since. But she kept them up all the way to her car and followed it up by saying she should have aborted me before driving off. I called my dad right away and told him everything that happened. He was insanely pissed and got into a huge fight with my mom as soon as she got home. She didn't even deny anything she said or did because she deemed it would have been for the greater good of their daughter. But my dad told her that she couldn't destroy me to save my sister. Then he threatened to divorce her if she didn't try to make things right. She ended up sobbing and then saying she'd do whatever he wanted. My dad said that it was couples and family counseling, or it was divorce. My mom signed a prenup before she married him, and she really had no choice. In family counseling, I called her out on how she always believed my sister's lies. My sister tried to say they were not lies, but each one I pointed out over the years said otherwise. I'd taken the time to write a list of all the ones I could remember from the past decade that had all been proven to lie. And my mom and sister were forced to stay silent as I read them all. They tried to interject repeatedly, but my dad and the counselor silenced them. My sister, now proven beyond a doubt to be a liar and a manipulator, just shut down and refused to say anything more to the counselor. And my mom finally apologized to me. But it was obviously a forced apology because she looked so uncomfortable doing it. I told her that her apology was very fake, and after so many years of favoritism, the damage was already done. My relationship with her never really recovered because she was convinced I was guilty no matter what was said until my sister admitted the truth, and then wanted me to pretend to be the guilty one anyway to protect her favorite child. But nothing went her way, so she just went back to crying about it. When my sister went to court, my mom pleaded with the judge to go easy on my sister for the charges of underage drink and giving other underage people alcohol, as well as attempting to frame me for her crime. She also resisted arrest when the police came and shut down the party. She was very drunk when it happened. They kept her in a cell overnight to sober up, and then she told the police I'd been the one to provide the alcohol. My mom's begging, along with the relentless lawyer my parents hired, got the judge to cut a deal, provided my sister plead guilty, which she did not want to do. But her lawyer highly recommended she take the deal to avoid jail time because there was no other way of keeping her from getting a felony on her record. My sister's lawyer used the fact that the alcohol had not been bought that day but rather had already been in the house long before the party happened to help lessen the charges. My sister's Facebook had also been completely deleted by her as soon as she was able to hide the post. The judge just wanted the case over with, so my sister got off with a huge fine that our mom paid most of out of her own pocket and a couple years of probation. She was also made to get therapy by our dad. She's never really shown actual remorse for what she did, though. And she only had animosity for me, no matter how wrong she was. She was eventually diagnosed as a narcissist after Dad made her go see a doctor. After her probation and 4 years of college were over, she decided she was going to leave home for California and never come back once she landed a good job. She currently works in an office in Los Angeles, and we've not spoken in years. Dad got her that job, and she's not shown any real appreciation for it. Even my mom has given up on her ever coming home for the holidays and us being a family again. It tore her up inside for a few years, but now she's just bitter. She doesn't really blame me anymore, but we only seem to show indifference to each other. Just because my sister cut her off wouldn't make me the new de facto favorite. It just means my mom lost her baby and isn't getting her back. She can't leave my dad because she's too reliant on him, despite having her own career. She'd never want to be on her own again, so she's just become a shell of her former self. Things between me and my dad are still great. He's pretty much disowned my sister for what she's done and has stopped caring if she'll ever talk to him again. He and my mom don't even sleep in the same bedroom anymore. She moved into the guest room about 5 years ago and has stayed there. Their marriage is really the only one on paper these days. Info: it's a felony or misdemeanor to provide alcohol to minors. And my sister provided stolen alcohol to at least a dozen people who were under 21. Then she resisted arrest and tried to frame me by lying to the police. The fact that she got off easy thanks to the shark-toothed lawyer my parents hired for my sister was incredibly lucky. Not that she was ever appreciative. The judge hit her with a fine for each person she gave alcohol to, which added up. And with the cost of the lawyer, well, my parents were out a lot of money. My sister held a party with underage drinking and got arrested. She tried to throw me under the bus by saying I provided the alcohol, and then I had to be forced to admit the truth. So my mom tried to make me take the blame anyway. My parents nearly divorced. My sister got off easy in court and ran off to California after college. Then she ghosted us all, even our mother, who did nothing but stick up for her. Edit, yes, my parents are wealthy. Especially my dad, as he's a business owner. He owns several businesses, actually. One big one and a few smaller ones. He even owns one of the local gas stations. And the town we live in is full of bored police that are just itching to get some action. I also heard that a couple of the minors arrested at that party were the kids of police as well, which did not help my odds when the cops came for me. The reason the investigation went as far as it did is because my dad pushed it through. I also went out of my way to provide some of the evidence, like the CCTV from my job, my apartment complex, and my bank statements showing I didn't buy the alcohol. The rest my dad pushed for. He had a lawyer get the CCTV from every liquor store in the county for that day. Though my mom tried to talk him out of doing so, in the end, this took way too much to prove my sister was a liar because she tried to stick to her story. Even after my parents discovered it, she got the alcohol from my dad's liquor cabinet. And yes, my parents lost a ton of money, basically paying off the court to dismiss most of my sister's charges. My sister had to pay like 10%. That's about it. And that's just the little bit my parents made her pay. They still paid for her college after that as well. So people calling this out as rich people drama are exactly right, because it is just that. At the time this went on, I was still in college myself. But my dad insisted I have a part-time job to learn the value of work. And he was exactly right about that. My family is wealthy. But my dad tried to keep me from acting spoiled growing up. I even bought my own first car with money I earned working part-time. But I can't say the same for my sister, as my mom treated her like a princess. The rest of the family as a whole also hates my sister after what she did back then. So there wasn't much love lost when she ghosted us, save for my mom. She cried about it often for an entire year. Edit 2, yes, this happened in the US. And yes, it was stupid the way the police arrested me. My dad had some pretty strong words with them about that. But I guess the cops had nothing better to do. And the arrest was expunged from my record after I was proven innocent. But as someone in the comments pointed out, it's scary how easily your freedom can be taken away. I've instinctively avoided police ever since that happened. For them, arresting the son of a rich guy must have been a big scandal waiting to happen. And no one was injured as a result of the Dewey. But I've spoken with my dad, and he said there were a few DUIs because a few of the minors there got in their cars and tried to drive away. Considering I heard a few of the people there were the kids of police officers, that only made things worse for me. The cops that arrested me both looked middle-aged. So if their kids were involved, that may explain why they treated me like I was guilty. Those who say this is fake, I wish it was. Because it's so stupid that it really should be. But my ungrateful sister broke our family. And she nearly destroyed my reputation as well. These days, everyone in town has forgotten her. She lost most, if not all, of her friends after that party because they were all arrested. Update. I expected to be able to log out of this account and just not come back. But it seems my sister saw my original post on YouTube. She's since called home and attempted to raise hellfire. She contacted our mother in a furious rage, saying that I'd humiliated her. And as a complete shock to me, my mom did not care. My sister told her how to find the post, and she read it. And now she was mad at me. But more so because she felt I made her look like a bad mother all over again. But my dad got involved and said it wasn't like I was lying. Because back then, the things she and my sister did were inexcusable. My mom agreed in a very sad way, but she still said she wished I'd never posted the story. I suppose I couldn't fault her for that. I ended up talking to my sister over the phone because our mom gave her my current number. And the first thing she did when I answered was scream in my ear. I stopped the call because of the screaming. And so the call was followed by a flurry of text messages. My sister demanded I take my original post down. I refused. She threatened to get our parents to make me take it down. But our parents by this time already knew about the post, and among them, our dad does not care, and our mom is more mad that I made her look like a bad mother all over again. So she threatened to get a lawyer and sue me for defamation. I told her to go right ahead. My post was made anonymously, and if she sues, then a lot of people are going to find out my post was about her. She asked if that was a threat. I said no, it's just something that'll likely happen if people dig more into both of our pasts if she starts a lawsuit. It might even affect her career. Rather than responding in text, my sister called me again, and I told her I'd hang up and block her if she screamed in my ear one more time. She angrily demanded I just take my original post down again or else. I pointed out that this is the first time we've spoken in 6 years, and she had no problem throwing me under the bus in the past anytime she could. And now she's mad because her own actions are reflecting poorly on her when no one else knows the story was about her but us. And I really didn't care what she thought of me anymore. Dad has pretty much disowned her, and she destroyed all the golden child love our mom had for her. My sister actually denied being a golden child, so I started to explain exactly what one was. She interrupted me, saying that she's on Reddit all the time. She knows what a golden child is, and I could only laugh at the fact that she knows that and still denies having been one. I pointed out all the things from my first post. How she lied so much, how she always had our mother by her side, how she was openly our mom's favorite, and how she expected everything to be handed to her. She was a golden child. There's just no denying that. Well, she took this very personally, and said that she wished our mother had aborted me, just like she'd said all those years ago when I refused to take the blame for my sister's crime. I just laughed some more and asked if that was all she had in her little black book of bad insults. She did not find it amusing that I found it so amusing. I fired back about how she is a self-important narcissist and always will be. She milked our parents so much and had no appreciation for it. Right down to that well-paid Los Angeles office job she's working that Dad got her. She scoffed at me and said she got that job on her own merit. I laughed again. No, she did not. Suddenly, a well-connected Los Angeles firm scouted her several states away after college to come work for them when she had no prior experience as an intern. It just doesn't happen. The old CEO of that company was a friend of our dad's before he passed away, and Dad called in a favor. That's how she got that job. My sister, of course, went into more denial about the truth I'd just presented her. But I guess it finally clicked in her mind that I was correct. She's a narcissist, but she's not dumb. So she just started bragging about how well she's been doing at that job. She made it to assistant manager and is set to be next in line for full manager someday. I was unimpressed, and she demanded to know why. So I pointed out that I've moved on to managing one of my dad's smaller businesses entirely. Sure, it was technically a promotion through nepotism, but I worked hard to earn it. And Dad's openly stated that when he someday passes away, I'm to inherit everything. Not that I'm clamoring for it, like she undoubtedly would. I actually want our dad to live a long time. She was so angry that she hung up on me and then called our parents again. She asked her dad if she'd really been disinherited, and they confirmed she was. Dad's will is set to leave her only a small settlement, so she can't contest it. And if she were to try and contest it, she'd automatically get nothing. Even our mom's will has basically written my sister out. My sister ended up crying and saying it wasn't fair. But both of our parents pointed out that her framing me all those years ago wasn't fair. Ghosting them after they paid so much money to keep her from getting a felony, and putting her through 4 years of college was unfair. They had nothing left they wanted to give. My sister ended up blocking us all, from phones to social media. We can't see anything now, but we don't really care. My mom has sat me down and given me a long-awaited, more sincere apology for what happened so long ago. Especially on that day, she tried to make me take the blame for my sister. Years without my sister in her life and the recent incident have made her realize more than ever that she was a terrible mother to us both. And she can't undo anything. But she wanted to at least say she was incredibly sorry. And she loved me. She's just been too ashamed to really show it. She's now finally looking into therapy, and she's even making an effort to spend more time with my dad, like in the old days. It's ironic, really. My sister tore our family apart, and then she somehow put it right back together by being the same kind of nasty person she's always been. So, sis, if you see this post, I bet you will. Don't bother trying to contact us again. Because if you do, then any more drama you cause is going to end up right here. So please leave us alone for the foreseeable future. Update. After all this time, I poked my head in to make an update and found my last post had been removed. So I'm reposting it without subreddits. My sister sank to a new low of manipulation with this one. A couple of months ago, she suddenly showed up at our parents' house with a boyfriend in tow and a positive pregnancy test, saying she was 2 months along. She claimed she wanted to make amends so her child would be able to know their grandparents. I saw this for what it was from the start. My sister went out of her way to get pregnant, so Dad would put her back in the will, and Mom would make her the golden girl again. But things didn't go down that way at all. It was in February when my sister showed up all of a sudden. She'd taken a leave from work to come see us. She even tried to act all smiles around me, but I could still see the hate in her eyes. She still blamed me. She never stopped blaming me, but she pretended that she'd seen the error of her ways. Mom seemed to buy her act, but Dad didn't at all. Though my parents having a grandchild is something they've been longing for, they begrudgingly accepted my sister back for the moment, but not without making sure whether or not this was a con. My dad suggested my sister take another pregnancy test to confirm. We expected her to protest, but she took the one my dad got and willingly used it. And it was positive, so she was indeed pregnant. My parents asked for some time alone with my sister, so I went home and didn't see them again until the next day's evening. I got the details on what happened from my parents then. The evening before, they'd had a long talk with my sister about all the things she'd done, and I told her that they would help support their grandchild and set up a college fund for them. But if my sister wanted a place back in the family, then she's going to have to work hard for it and prove she's changed. Because it was obvious from the timing of the pregnancy that she only got pregnant to try and get back into the family's good graces. She denied this, of course, but her past actions spoke for themselves. Our parents wanted her to seek therapy, both individually and in groups with them over video calls. And they also wanted her to apologize to me for what she did years ago, since she always refused to. That's when she finally broke and said that I didn't deserve an apology, because I'm the reason she got her life ruined to begin with. Well, my dad didn't let that slide and practically roared at her. And then he told her that she was never grateful for anything they did for her, and that she was only blaming me so she wouldn't have to take responsibility for her own actions. My mom chimed in and said that she had to realize her own past actions were beyond wrong. Like when she tried to force me to take the blame for my sister back then so her baby wouldn't get in trouble. And how she'd said those horrible things to me when I refused. And if she could genuinely admit her wrongs, my sister could too. Well, my sister flipped out and left with her boyfriend. The few times I met the guy, I could tell he was only with my sister for the money, because she treated him like absolute crap. She even elbowed him in the stomach once, right in front of me. Anyway, my sister came back the next day with a long, rehearsed apology for them. Crocodile tears were included. And again, the only reason our parents let her back in was because of her pregnancy. She was set up back in her old room, and she spent the next few days trying to act all smiles. But her act was pretty bad. She was still expected to give me that long overdue apology. And I met up with her and her boyfriend at a local restaurant our parents picked. We figured if she was to give me anything even remotely genuine as an apology, it couldn't be around our parents. She started off the apology by basically murmuring. And when her boyfriend wanted her to speak up, that's when she elbowed him in the stomach. And hard, too. He asked to be excused and left us one-on-one. As soon as he was gone, my sister started what's more of a non-apology. Basically, she was saying she was sorry for what happened when she tried to frame me. But it still would have never happened if I'd just gone with it that day and gotten the alcohol for her party. And then we could have both had a great time. I countered that she still didn't get it. She framed me, and when cops were called on her, it had nothing to do with me. So if I had helped that day, then I would have been arrested and charged too. I got up and said she still hadn't changed. She only lived in her little, important world and walked out. When our parents learned of this, my sister tried to deny the words she'd spoken to me. But my dad knows the owner of that restaurant. We were seated away from other noisy guests, and were put right below a CCTV camera with audio. It caught everything. And my parents received the video within hours from the restaurant owner. They played it in front of my sister and told her this is exactly why she's not getting much in the will. Her child might be, but not her. That's when she threw a tantrum and walked out, screaming at them. And this time, she didn't come back. She got in her car and drove all the way back to Los Angeles without saying a word to any of us. She later called to say her boyfriend had left her, and she didn't know where he was. As I thought, he was clearly in it for the money. And when their con failed, he cut her loose. So now my sister is around 4 months pregnant with her baby daddy pulling a runner. She's still sending our parents updates on the pregnancy. And my parents are having a very hard time dealing with the fact that their future grandchild is basically being used as an attempted bargaining chip for my sister to worm her way back in. And sis, if you see this post, I did warn you that I'd do this if you tried anything else. You've left our mother heartbroken all over again, our father beyond disappointed, and me as your mental scapegoat because you still can't admit it was 100% your fault you were disowned. You haven't changed a bit, and I doubt you ever will. Update. Yes, I get that this story sounds extremely fake. I'm also aware that selling one's child isn't exactly legal. Well, my parents found a way, and it involved more than one lawyer, and was called something more of a financial settlement. Yes, it involved an outrageous amount of money, and my parents took a bigger financial hit in this than I had previously alluded to. It's actually pushed back my father's retirement by about 10 years. I can't make any guesses as to the numbers, but I know property in California can go for an outrageous amount. There are also some questions about who is raising my nephew and how. Let's just say that's complicated right now. I'm reposting this free of subreddits. And once gone, I will not be coming back. Despite what some people think, I don't get a kick out of doing this. I previously had an axe to grind with my sister, and the SHT she put me through, but you can only grind an edge so much before it becomes dull. The original post is as follows. Some time ago, my sister gave birth to a baby boy. She made sure we knew the gender well in advance, as well as sending our parents pictures of ultrasonic sounds and anything else that kept our parents' need for a grandchild's motor running. My sister only allowed our parents to come to the hospital to meet their grandchild at birth. They had to take a last-minute flight to Los Angeles just to be there. My sister also forbade me from going. She said I'd ruined her life enough. She wished she was an only child. She wished me unalive. All stuff like that in repetition. And she doesn't want me anywhere near her again. Well, the feeling is mutual. 3 months before the birth, my sister showed up again. This time she pleaded with our parents to let her in to talk and not to contact me because she really didn't want me there. She only had 1 day before she had to head back to Los Angeles, and she had driven through the night. I wasn't there to see it. But from the details I got from my parents, my sister went crying to Mom and begged her to take her back into the family. My dad said that Mom hardly wanted to look at her. Dad confronted my sister and said that she hadn't bothered to try to contact them in years, and that she was only back and even pregnant because it was all about the money for her. If she'd never seen my Reddit post, she would still be with us. Mom spoke up and told her that she hoped for so long that my sister would come home to visit or even just talk to her. But it was years of no contact. She'd done everything for her. She'd favored her. She defended her lies, and she'd made sure she didn't get a felony in court. And yet my sister showed zero appreciation. Dad backed this up too, and he even compared me to her, and how I at least appreciated my parents. Then he blurted out that I'd been made a legal partner in the business he is having me manage, and that I'm on track to eventually take his place one day. After that, my sister, I'm told, went hysterical and was screaming about how it wasn't fair and it should be her instead. Somehow, she was still allowed to spend the night in her old room. And the next morning, she dropped this bomb on my parents. I heard that her emotions were just gone. I guess she didn't feel the need to keep up the act anymore. She said that she'd allow Mom and Dad to adopt her child in exchange for a house in California and an undisclosed sum of money that I'm not privy to. And you know what? My parents agreed, but my dad had demands of his own. In return for the adoption of my nephew, my sister gave up any and all rights to her son, signed a contract stating that she would never be a part of the family again, and changed her legal name. That last part really surprised me. Dad went so far as to pay for her name to be changed in order to separate her from the family. This meant getting all of her information reissued, such as her diploma, college degree, passport, and anything else that ever had her name on it. All paid for by my parents. And as part of the agreement, my sister could never change her name back, or even to something similar. My parents didn't half-assess anything in this endeavor. My participation in it was minimal at best. My parents went to California to purchase a house my sister approved of, but she would not be given the house until after the baby was born and in their hands. She was very unhappy about this, as she wanted to move into the house after she'd signed the contract. But our parents had none of it. They gave my sister a week to sign, and she signed in front of a lawyer in less than 48 hours. So as of then, I'm now considered an only child. I'm not going to say I'm happy about that. I used to love my sister before she became a narcissist. But what's done is done, and I'm over it. My parents also tracked down the baby's biological father to get him to relinquish his parental rights as well. My sister found out he went back to his hometown in Arizona after he abandoned her, and my parents went to see him before the baby was born. He had no problem signing away paternal rights after a DNA test confirmed he was the father. He must have still been in cahoots with my sister, because he also wanted a house and a payout as compensation to sign away his rights. Though not nearly as much, I'm told. My parents purchased him a cheap house somewhere and paid him off. Well, I say cheap in comparison to the house they bought for my sister in Los Angeles. This was one expensive baby to adopt. But as my dad said, it's worth every cent to make sure my grandson has a future. My dad sold one of his smaller businesses to a competitor in order to get the money together without really affecting his other finances. Said competitor had been making him offers for years, and my dad wasn't that involved with the business anymore. So he finally took the offer, but only if they retained all of the employees already there, which they did. And now it's their name on the sign. But my parents didn't care because they'd fully adopted my nephew. When the child was born, my sister didn't even want to hold him. And I heard someone even once refer to the baby as that thing, which was beyond cruel. She even admitted she was planning to sell the baby in a closed adoption to someone else, but our parents had not agreed to do it themselves. She got her house and her money, and then I promptly cut contact all over again. so she's gone from our lives for good and is no longer related to us. My mom was doing the bulk of the parenting of my nephew until they could find a live-in nanny to help pick up the slack since they're getting old. They needed help with a newborn, especially when they become toddlers. My mom is very happy, but my dad has made it clear to her that they will not make the same mistakes they did with my sister. No favoritism, no enabling bad behavior, no lying. And that the child will never know his real mother, as she's unalive to us. And if my sister ever tries to seek him out, she'd be in serious breach of contract and have to return the house or its monetary value. So I doubt she'd bother to ever try. Since the time she first showed up pregnant, my sister and I have only spoken once more over the phone. And it was after my nephew was born. For the record, she called me to gloat and tell me off one last time. I told her she was a delusional narcissist who only wanted to blame me because it's easier for her than accepting reality. But she just reacted smugly, saying that it didn't matter what I said. She's going to believe what she wants to believe, and she's already won anyway since she got what she wanted. She's still got a good career in Los Angeles, lots of money, and now a house. And all it cost her was a baby she didn't even really want. She can live however she wants now, and we can't do a damn thing about it because we are no longer family. I hung up and blocked her number. I was seething with anger, but there was no point in arguing further. In her own way, yeah, she'd won. But at what cost? She no longer has family, and she has no one to rely on ever again if things go south for her. My nephew isn't going to be raised as another son, due to a 30-plus year age difference between me and him. So my parents want to make it clear that he is a grandson as he grows up and that we are his true family. Our goal is to make sure he never has any desire to seek out his biological mother. She never wanted him anyway. And it's better he understands that from a young age rather than pine for the mother he never had. So I guess this is the end. It was a long time coming. But I'm honestly happy that my sister no longer has any connection to us. I spent 5 years thinking my ex-best friend tried to SZ me. So the title kind of says it all. And this is a bit to unpack, so sorry if the post is kind of long. The details all seem relevant, though, and I'm kind of rambling since a bomb was dropped on me today that I just don't know how to handle, and I need some advice. 5 years ago, when I was 23, I had been working with a company that handled hospitality training and stuff like that. What we did really wasn't important, but at that point, I had been with the company for about 3 years already. Mark had gotten hired around the same time as I had, and we did a lot of training and stuff together, got put in the same call center group, and all around just became extremely close friends that hung out after work since we lived close to each other and were both unattached. To point out how close we had gotten since we were both single, folks in the company and our department always made jokes that we needed to just screw up the company policies and start dating. We always laughed it off because, at the end of the day, we both made it abundantly clear to each other that we only saw each other as friends. For what it's worth, I don't remember how the conversation came up, but it was just a strictly platonic relationship. So yeah, we were basically attached at the hip for about 2.5 years when I met Paul at the time. I'm 29 and currently 34, and began dating him. Paul and Mark got along somewhat fine at first, but a few months into dating, Paul started to get upset if I said I was going to grab dinner with Mark after work, even if Paul was working at the time, since he had his own long hours. For what it was worth, Mark seemed to understand where Paul was coming from and only grabbed dinner with me when I asked him, never prompting it himself. Well, on my 24th birthday, I decided to throw a party at my apartment. And when Paul flaked at helping me get supplies, Mark stepped in and helped, even going out and buying the lion's share of the booze for the party. The party got going, and Paul ended up showing up an hour after most of the others were there. After a few hours, most of the people started heading out, leaving a few people sleeping in the living room because they were too drunk to drive, and then Mark, Paul, and myself. Mark insisted I go lay down since it was my birthday, and he knew I was already pretty drunk myself, so it wasn't right for me to clean up after my own party. So I said goodnight to everyone, and Paul helped me back to the room. Like I said, I was pretty drunk, and while I remember the night, I also remember being very off my normal composure. He put me in bed on my side, facing the wall, and then left, and I pretty quickly dozed off. Trigger warning, now skip this next paragraph if you don't want the gory details, but it's the only way I have been able to even sort of come to terms with all of it after my time in therapy. The next thing I remember is loud music blaring in the room and feeling completely bound. I was still inebriated, but as I tried to move around, I could feel I was tied to the bed and could feel someone on top of me. I was lying on my stomach, and there was a hand on the back of my head pushing it into the pillow, so I couldn't see anything, and I could feel someone stumbling to try and pull my pajamas down, and shoving his hand up against me. Someone was pounding at the door until I heard a loud crack and then Mark and Paul's voices arguing. The pressure pulled off my head, and I could see one of them pulling the other away. But in the darkness, I couldn't tell who was doing what, but there was a lot of screaming and crashing. A few minutes later, Paul comes back in the room and unties me from the bed and just holds me, telling me Mark had been trying to SM me. I wanted to file a police report, but Paul convinced me not to since he had gotten there in time and nothing had happened, which I should have taken as a red flag. But I just didn't at the time because I was so relieved that I had been saved. I took a few days off from work and blocked Mark on all social media. But not before he texted me, trying to tell me that Paul had been the one to attack me and that he was the one that saved me. I didn't believe him because it had been Paul who came in and untied me, and if Paul had been trying, then why would he do that? Plus, we were dating, and it just didn't make any sense to me, so I thought Mark had just snapped or something. I ended up quitting the company before my time off ended because I had been starting to look at advancement in my career and moving on, so I just decided that was my sign and tried to run away from it all. Paul and I kept dating for about 6 months after that, until I caught him cheating on me with a lady from his office. Maybe this should have been a bigger red flag to me too, but I had been trying to distance myself from what had happened. Then life just went on. I got comfortable in my new job, stayed away from getting too friendly with anyone at work, and have never had a close guy friend again. Occasionally, I'd see Mark at the grocery store or around town. Like I said, we had lived close to each other and neither of us moved, and I never felt the need to since he kept his distance from me completely. I thought I was mostly over what had happened half a decade ago until I got a notification a few hours ago that Paul had messaged me. I thought that was odd because I had blocked him, but I opened the message up anyway out of curiosity. I don't want to share the whole message because there's a lot of personal details in it, so I'm going to just hit the important details. So according to him, Paul is an alcoholic and has been for years. Even back when we first started dating, he was pretty much always drinking something or looking for an excuse. He got fired from his job for showing up to work drunk and assaulting the receptionist by trying to force his tongue down her throat in the front lobby at 9 a.m. He was in court-mandated AA, and as part of his recovery, he was trying to make amends with anyone he had wronged because of his habit. And finally, Mark never tried to SM me. It was him. He had been jealous of my friendship with Mark and saw an opportunity to get him out of the picture because of how gullible I was. I'm not going to lie, I threw up after reading the whole thing. He had so much detail behind all of it that I just felt sick to my stomach that he not only remembered everything, from how he had secretly put ties on my bed before I even went to sleep once he saw how drunk I was getting, to how he beat the SHT out of Mark and threatened to end him if he went to the cops. I know it's not a healthy reaction, but I've been drinking a bit since all of that message hit my inbox, trying to decide what to do. I know I need to call my therapist to talk about all of this, but my mind keeps going back to Mark and how betrayed he must have felt over it all. I even unblocked him on all my social media. He never blocked me, so his profile popped back up pretty quickly, and I've been trying to decide if I should message him or not. I know logically that Paul should be the one messaging him as a part of his AA stuff, but I'm also pretty sure that Mark did block him since Paul mentioned not being able to find him on social media. But he also might not have remembered Mark's last name either, so it might be hard to find him. So I guess my question is, should I message Mark? What would I even say? Sorry, I didn't believe you when you said you didn't try to SM me. My ex-BF was jealous of a close male friend and framed him for trying to SM me to get me to stop being friends with him. Short update. A close friend of mine answered her phone and is swinging by to spend the night with me here just so I have a shoulder to cry on because I could just use a good cry right now. I'm going to leave Mark alone for now while I get my thoughts in order, but I'll probably send him a message in a few days once I can talk to my therapist. I did put the wine away, it's not helpful right now, and I don't want to make the wrong decision and message Mark strictly on a somewhat drunken impulse. Some selected comments from OOP. Commenter, yes, you should message him, because that has to be an open wound for him that has never healed. If he came in to try to stop Paul and ended up the bad guy when he was actually the good guy, it was a punch to the gut, and never being believed about it is a constant pain that never really goes away. Good luck. That Paul guy, I'm glad he isn't part of your life anymore. Wow, this is exactly why my mind has been going to Mark, because I feel so incredibly guilty. I've been sort of stalking him a bit here, and it seems like he's had an okay life, but I just feel like I owe him some sort of message now. Commenter, all I'll say is that you shouldn't be surprised if Mark wants nothing to do with you after you tarnished his name and kind of his soul in a way. I'll bet that because of this, there are more than a couple people who think of him as Mark the S-ing person, not just Mark. I hope you learned that you shouldn't believe the first story you're told when someone else's life is in the crosshairs of your poorly informed decisions. Y'all can get mad at that if you want, but this isn't a time to coddle anybody's feelings to avoid speaking the uncomfortable truth. There can be two sides to an argument without anybody needing to go call their therapist because they got triggered by an ounce of opposition. I'm sorry any of this happened to you at all. That should have never happened. But what happened to him is even worse, and at the end of the day, you are the villain of his story. While I completely understand that might be Mark's reaction, and it is totally understandable if it is, I want to make it clear that I didn't ever go around calling him that or outright telling anyone, even though my first instinct was to file a police report. Paul had stopped me when I had brought it up, and in hindsight, it's probably because the investigation might have revealed it was him. But I never told the company I was quitting because of Mark or anything like that, and only a handful of my close friends and my therapist even know of the assault. While that doesn't stop gossip, which may be what you're referring to, I didn't actively go out on the streets screaming that Mark was an essing person. I'm also not saying I expect to be close friends with him again, and maybe now this is just my own selfish guilt that is telling me I need to tell him. But as other commenters have mentioned, and I am taking the advice, it's better for me to process this new information and talk to my therapist first. Morning update. I went to bed last night after putting the wine away when my friend got here and woke up to so many comments and PMs that I can't quite get back to everyone without being repetitive. So I want to just answer a few common things I've been messaged or seen. In a comment I mentioned, I told a handful of friends. To be specific, I told 3 plus my therapist. I didn't have a whole lot of close friends back then, and I wasn't a part of a big friend group either. That said, one of those 3 was here with me last night after I got a hold of her, and she's every bit as disgusted as pretty much everyone else. I can't say for sure if any of them told anyone, and honestly, given the passing of time, I wouldn't expect them to have the same crystal clear image of who they might have told. But I do understand this might have spread without my knowledge. I am looking into the statute of limitations for reporting in my state here. From everything I have read over coffee this morning, I believe it hasn't passed, and as several have mentioned, he literally gave me a written confession. As for how I didn't realize Paul was an alcoholic, well, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm going mostly based on his message, which told me he was always drinking, even back then. We weren't living together, and as I mentioned, there were plenty of days that I didn't see him compared to when I did, and I don't even know now if he was even working late all the times he told me he was. I have texted my therapist and am waiting for a reply now. I'm hopeful she has some time this afternoon or tomorrow that I can speak with her, but my friend is staying with me until I can speak with her just so that I don't have to be alone right now. And I can't say just how much I appreciate it. To those of you who have provided advice or shared your stories with me, thank you. Deeply, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Last night, when I received that message, I was thrown into such a loop that I didn't know where to begin or how to unpack it all, given the time that had passed. Old wounds can be reopened so easily, and this one was a scar that didn't need much to make it pop. Update. TLDR, my psycho ex was jealous of my friendship with a guy from work, and he framed him for trying to SM me. Now on to the update. First off, I want to thank everyone who messaged me to check up on me or to share their own stories with me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I would like to start this off by saying I haven't gone back to the wine, though I desperately wanted to yesterday. I haven't really been much of a drinker since that night 5 years ago, and last week I learned the disgusting truth about Paul. To those who were hoping I would file a police report, I did. I spoke with my therapist at length the Monday following my post, and she was shocked but extremely helpful in helping me process everything. She spent some time at what should have been the end of our video appointment looking up the statute of limitation laws in my state, and warned me that my report might just be added to a pile of other charges Paul could possibly have against him given that he was assigned court-mandated AA. All the same, I filed the report with screenshots of his messages to me printed and attached. I'm not sure what to expect from that, and at the end of the day, I hope he has an absolute SHT life if it goes nowhere. Now, as for Mark, my therapist was insistent that I at the very least write him something, whether it be a letter to mail him or a message on Facebook. He never reached out to me after I unblocked him, but given what he thought I thought of him, I think it's understandable. She, like many of you, pointed out that while he knew he was innocent, the thought of someone believing him capable of something monstrous like that could have weighed on him for all this time. And even if his reception of my message wasn't ideal, he deserved at least the closure that this known turn of events could provide. I took a few days to write and rewrite a message in Notepad. I didn't want to accidentally hit send before I had the wording right, and each time I sat down to write it, I felt like I came up short, even though the message just got longer and longer. Again, I didn't think about just saying, "Oh, guess what? I learned Paul is an absolute psychopath last week." Surprise. It would have been super appropriate either way, but I wanted to find the right balance. Here's the message I ended up sending him. "Hi Mark, so this is a bit out of the blue, and I really don't know how to start this, so I'm just going to put it out there. I'm sorry for not listening to you. Paul messaged me last week and revealed everything, and I'm just sorry. This isn't easy to write, and you deserve so much more than just an apology so long after the fact. There's no excuse for me not giving you the benefit of the doubt other than that I let myself be stupidly gaslighted by a psychopathic maniac. This is the message he sent me. It even confesses to an assault on you in the event that you'd like to press charges against him, as I have already filed a police report for what he did to me. If you would like to talk about any of this at all, my inbox is open. If you want to tell me to F off, well, I guess I understand that too. I'm not sure what I really expect because this has ripped open a wound I had been trying to heal, and I'm sure this might cause you some distress. But I felt you at the very least deserved to know. I know I probably could have said more, but anytime I kept trying to write, I felt like it was just me making excuses. I sent that to him this past Friday, and I'm pretty sure he read it sometime between Friday and Saturday, as the read notification had been there when I checked Facebook again at lunch on Saturday. I had been out with my friend Jenny, who had stayed over with me after I learned the truth. And when I told her I had messaged Mark, she wondered if he had responded, so I checked. Last night at about 6 p.m., my phone dinged, and while I thought it might have been a text from Jenny or maybe my mom, I don't really text or talk to a lot of people. I actually found that Mark had sent me a reply. I wish you would have listened to me back then, but I'm glad you know the truth. I thought that was all he was going to send me when the 3 dots kept going across the bottom of my screen. He was still typing when he sent me pictures as well. They were graphic, and Paul's assertion that he had beat the SHT out of Mark did, in fact, also come with documented proof from him in the form of pictures. Mark went on to explain that he filed an assault report the next day after my birthday, but that the police had warned him against accusing Paul of sexually assaulting me given the turn of events in my "don't speak to me again" text I sent him when he tried to explain himself. Nothing had ever come of his police report, and he wasn't even sure why. Neither am I, but he intended to follow up once more today. Mark is still very much the kind person I remember him being, and while I was bracing for him to hold a grudge against me, he instead just expressed his happiness that I finally knew the truth. We exchanged small talk through chat for a little while, but it was nowhere near the conversations we used to have. Mark is actually engaged to a girl he has been dating for about 2 years now. He had apparently never brought any of this up to her until she saw my name flash on his screen with the notification and asked who I was. While some of you expressed concern that my friends had smeared his name, he apparently never heard anything of it. He actually still works for the same company we had both been at just now, in a copywriting role for the marketing team. So at the very least, the lack of a police report from me or making a scene at work worked out in his favor there. I asked if we could keep in touch, even if only with small talk, and he said that he thought that would be okay, though he was a lot busier than he was back then between work and planning his wedding. While I thought that was going to be the end of it, he messaged me a few hours ago to let me know he refiled his police report with the added messages I had sent him and that if I'd be open to it. He'd like to meet for coffee with his fiancée in tow and a friend of mine if I felt more comfortable doing it that way. I'm not really sure if that's an entirely good idea, but I sent Jenny a text to see what she thought and if she'd be open to coming with me. She said it's ultimately up to me what I decide to do, and she'd be with me either way. So yeah, that's the update for those of you who have reached out and asked. TLDR told Mark about Paul's confession. He was happy to be finally absolved in my eyes and didn't seem to hold a grudge against me. We might get coffee this weekend, supervised by his fiancée and my friend. Update: my former gaslighting, psychopathic boyfriend is going to be behind bars. I haven't opened this throwaway account in close to a year and a half, and honestly, I never expected to come back to it after I aired out learning about the gaslighting monster that had attacked me over half a decade ago. For anyone who wants more details, my profile has the posts logged, and I'm really not trying to reshare and rehash them as I have gotten more than enough of that out of my therapy appointments. The reason I'm posting is primarily out of joy. My attacker, Paul, had a slew of other court dates already when I filed my case against him, and I had started to lose hope that anything was going to happen since I was reporting an incident from over 5 years ago. But the court system in my state was stupidly overbooked, and I just had to wait for things to take their natural course. Over the last few months, I started to get follow-up calls from an investigator who was apparently going over the details of Paul's case. He was already facing some time in prison over a different assault charge. His time in AA had proven not to be effective even with trying to make amends, and the prosecutor was looking to add my report of sexual assault to an overall criminal case against him. But it would require me to submit either a document to be provided as testimony, or to act as an in-person witness. Though I had received Paul's message, I hadn't interacted with or seen him in person for well over 4 years, and my therapist suggested I might get some closure over testifying against him in court. This finally happened last week. It was hard, and I won't lie. I cried while I was on the stand, but it felt good. The years hadn't been kind to Paul, and while he certainly looked remorseful sitting in the courtroom, I could give two Fs about how this was going to affect him. I left after that and found out just this morning that, between his various cases, he's going to prison. I'm not sure how long, but I also know he is being added to the sex offender database, which is another win as far as I'm concerned. Other than that, life has been going pretty well. I've decided to throw myself into some new hobbies, another suggestion by my therapist, and have overall tried to just become the best version of myself as possible. My old friend Mark, who had taken the blame for Paul's actions for so long, got married in the middle of last year, and while he and his fiancée had offered me an invitation, I didn't feel like it was my place to attend. We hadn't been in contact for so long, and I didn't want anyone asking me questions about why I was there when I didn't really have any other friends attending the event. We message every so often, but he's got his own life, and it's not my place to intrude on that. I'm just happy that Paul's bullshit never got to derail his life in any huge way outside of the obvious. I'll probably never have a reason to log back onto this account again, and I really only did it today because I was just so overjoyed to hear the results that it reminded me of something I had vented to you all so long ago. To everyone who has reached out to check in on me, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. I caught my wife, who was 13 years old, cheating with a co-worker. Just here to get straight to the point. My wife and I have been married since we were 25. We are 38 now. We met in college, got married, and everything has been great. We both graduated, got good jobs, and started our lives together. Me and my wife both made good money, so money was never an issue for us. My wife worked for her dad's small business, while I worked for a very large company. After a few years, my boss left the company out of nowhere, and they needed someone to take over. The only person who knew how to run the department was me. So, I got a major pay jump, a better bonus, and better benefits. The works. So, at 28 I was making probably 3x plus more than my wife. At 28, the same year, my wife gave birth to our first daughter. Then, 2 years later, our second my wife, due to working for her father, was able to be more diverse in her work. Well, around 5 years ago, my father-in-law passed away unexpectedly. That left my mother-in-law and wife in a hard position. Sell the company or run it themselves. My mother-in-law had no clue how to run it, so my wife said she would do it. After my wife took over the company, it did just as well as when her father ran it. With that being said, my wife got a huge pay increase, more than me. I was proud of her. Going from a basic worker to running a whole company isn't easy. Anyway, our daughters started suffering from not seeing their parents. Me and my wife discussed one of us staying home. She said, "The company you work for will be fine without you. Mine could go under." I agreed, so I quit my job and became a stay-at-home dad or husband. I do everything. I make sure the girls are all taken care of. I cook, clean, fix things, make sure errands are run, you name it. I pamper my wife when she gets home from work. This went well for a while until about a year ago. My wife was always very appreciative of what I did and loved it. She has become very mean lately. Like just saying things like, "Do you do anything or how about you work for real?" What? I work my arse every day, making sure you don't have to lift a finger when you get home at all. Also, I had a real job. But I quit to raise and take care of the girls, our home, and you. Not to mention, my wife is very sexual. Always has been. She quit initiating sex, and when I ask, she is never in the mood. That was very odd. Eventually, I quit trying. I just thought, with all the pandemic crap and everything else, she was just very stressed, and it was getting to her. I started trying harder to make her happy. Nothing ever worked. Last weekend, my oldest had a softball game. So, I get everything ready, and we go. During the game, I wanted to take a video for my mom and dad since they live in another state and don't get to see my daughters that often. I forgot my phone, so I asked my wife if I could see hers. She had been attached to it all day, so it would be good for her to get off it. Anyway, she hands it to me and says she is going to get a drink and a snack. She gets up. I video my daughter when a message comes up on some app. I check, and I can't even fathom what I see. My wife and this guy from her work, who is 8 years younger, are sexting and sending videos and pictures, talking about how great the sex was, and then me. He is saying that I am some wimp who can't get a real job taking care of his women, and my wife agrees with him. I couldn't believe this SHT I saw. I was so devastated and angry at the same time. I heard my wife coming back, so I closed the app and started videoing. On the ride home and when we get home, my wife tries to talk to me, and I am not in the mood. Eventually, we lay in bed and, for the first time, I guess they hadn't met in a while, tried to have sex. I tell her I am not in a mood. She says, "If you are going to be a bee about everything, you can sleep on the couch." I got up and went to the couch, and I have been here since. I don't know how to move forward with this. I really just don't know where to start. My wife was my everything. My girls are my world, and all of that is ending. Any advice would be wonderful, as I really need it. TLDR, my wife and I met in college and got married. Her dad unalived, and she took over the family business. I became a stay-at-home dad, and she is cheating on me. Edit, I should have mentioned that I did send screenshots of the conversation to my phones. I do have the evidence. Update. Hey everyone, I want to thank you all for the advice you all gave. First off, I do have the text, pictures, videos, and everything. Second, I don't know any of the companies. It is 50/50 between her and my mother-in-law. Third, I can't sleep in bed. I have been sleeping in the guest bedroom every night, and that is where I will be staying. To answer, I have decided to divorce her. Anyway, this morning I called a firm in another town to avoid anyone finding out. Thankfully, we were able to get me in this morning as someone had canceled. After dropping off my girls, I drove over there. To make a long story short, he is a very good lawyer. I showed him what I had. He said that, luckily for me, with the evidence I have, she will be pretty much screwed in the divorce. Seeing as I quit my job to raise our girls, she is never home. She is having an affair, and she prioritizes this man over me and my girls. She will lose very easily. He basically said we will get child support and alimony. I will keep the house, and we will have to pay for it as long as my girls live there. Also, he stated that we could even try for more money since I am considered no longer viable in the working world to help me pay for more education to get a job. Some of you were right. He said to not work until after the divorce is over. He said since you are the husband, if you have a job, you can lose a lot of this. He asked if I wanted full custody. I said that I don't mind my wife seeing her girls on the weekends every once in a while, but I would rather have mostly full custody. He said that since she had an affair in the marital home, I can basically do what I want. Since he stated that bringing a strange man over to the house put the girls in danger and made her guilty, I will be going for full custody, where she can get weekends once, maybe twice a month. No man will be allowed around my girls, and if there are, she could face problems with me if I find out. I just don't want that pus around my girls. He eventually said to keep quiet until the draft was ready, and then he would issue someone to serve her and have it issued that she was required to leave the home. He said he should have it done sometime next week. He asked me to just keep quiet. He said, I know it is hard and you are upset, but just shut the hell up until everything is done. Once the divorce is over, you can say whatever the hell you want about her, but until then, keep your mouth shut. He said to act as normal. He said no fights, no issues, sleep in a separate bed, and no sex. I said no problem, but why? He said, trust me, just don't do it and do as I say. I just got home and have started getting ready for dinner, acting, and being normal. I will be acting as if everything is okay until she is served next week. As I can only make 2 updates, yes, I actually read the rules. Any more will be on my page if anyone cares. Thank you all for the advice and some very harsh words. And to the one guy who asked for my wife's no-cloth pics, just know. It seems all you have to do is ask her, and she will send them, so it isn't as hard as it appears. Quick edit, he recommended I get an STD test, plus a DNA test on my girls. When I asked why, he said, it is pretty rare that incidents like this are the first time they have happened. So, yeah, that effing hurt to be here and scared the hell out of me. Update 2. Hey everyone, I just want to thank all who sent me good messages over this period. I have been feeling down, and things have been rough. To preface, I have talked to my lawyer about these posts. I didn't go into too much detail. They did tell me, though, that as long as I keep them brief and not super specific, I can post, but I just have to be careful about what I put on to not lead to too many details. That is that. So, for a quick update, like I said, it will be brief and not too specific for legal reason. We will start with the test. I was able to get an STD on myself and a paternity test on my girls. I found out that, thankfully, I have no disease and am clear. Since I have been pretty much sex-less with her for the last year, I wasn't all that surprised. Now for the one that I am sure most of you are wondering. The test was on my 2 girls. Am I the dad? I will always be their dad, regardless of the results. However, I am here to say that, yes, I am their biological father. I have never been so happy to know that I am their dad. I never thought I would have to question it, but here we are. As for what has happened with STBX, well, she is out of the house, and I have been granted full temporary custody. In the future, which may take a while, I will go into more specific details. However, for now, she is out of the house. My lawyer set everything up for me to get my girls and make sure that we legally handled her being removed from the home. It wasn't pretty, but details are for another time. She was served at work, and from what I know, it wasn't pretty. Like I said, details for another time. My girls know what is going on. My oldest knows we are separating, and one of her friend's parents split for the same reason. She has seen what happened with her friend and doesn't want us to split. She has been crying for me to let mommy come home. I will be getting them in with a child therapist to explain and help them understand, with the direction of my lawyer. My youngest just wants mommy to come home and misses her. It ending me and makes me feel like a terrible father, and they probably hate me now. Sometimes I think I should just let their mother cheat on me to keep the family unit and make my girls happy. I just can't do that. Sometimes I think about talking about allowing an open relationship, and we can just wait till the girls are older, but that won't work for me. Plus, I know the girls will pick up on it and will not like it that mommy and daddy don't love each other. As for my ex, she is living with her mother at this point. My mother-in-law has called me and asked to meet. I agreed, and we will meet at some point. She didn't ask for details, as she said we would talk later, but she begged me not to take her granddaughters away from her. I said you are a great and loving grandmother, and as long as you can separate my girls from what is going on between your daughter and me, I see no issue with you being able to see them, and I will not take them out of your life. She thanked me, and that was it. My ex has been trying to call me and text me, trying to figure out us. Under the direction of my lawyer, he has had it set up so that I can talk to her through a trackable method, and it is purely about the girls. No more, no less. So, that is it for now. I will probably keep updating, and once this is all over, I will make one big update for all the details I have to be careful about as of now. Thank you. Update 3. Hey everyone, I thought I would give everyone a small update on some stuff that has happened. So first off, I had Thanksgiving with my STBX and MIL. I did this purely for the girls and made sure with my lawyer that this was only about the girls and not about reconciliation. That was taken care of. First, I met with my MIL pre-Thanksgiving. We met and had a pretty mutual discussion. Mostly just things about how we will handle my daughters after. My mother-in-law did tell me some stuff about my STBX. I guess my STBX was cheated on by her high school boyfriend. I didn't even know she dated anyone. I guess this guy came from one of those family, according to my MIL, and they told her to avoid him. Well, I guess one night she caught him with his head under another girl's dress and his tongue deep in a girl's jewelry box. My mother couldn't believe she would do this. She had a couple boyfriends they met in college, but she knew they wouldn't last. She said that as soon as she met me, she found her son-in-law. She says she is so sorry for her daughter's actions, and will make sure that she doesn't try to do anything problematic with the divorce. Anyway, a couple days before Thanksgiving, my MIL asked for me to come over for dinner with the girls. I said, will she be there? She said yes. I said I couldn't be with her there. She said she understood but asked if we could put on the holiday one more time for the girls. She said, I know you have a lawyer. Ask them, and if they say it is a bad idea, I get it. I did, and they said to tell your wife via the app that this is purely for the girls to avoid any confusion. So, I did. She had contacted me before about coming over. She has been begging me to see me and the girls. The girls have been begging me to see their mom. I swallowed my pride for my girls, and we went. It was awkward. My STBX gave our daughters a hug, fine, then tried to hug and kiss me. I just avoided her and went to give my mother-in-law a hug. My STBX tried to act like a husband and wife and was trying to talk to me. I answered with yes and no's and helped my MIL finish dinner and clean up. My mother-in-law is religious and wanted to do a prayer, and my STBX sat next to me. I held my daughter's hand. My wife tried to grab mine, but I pulled away. I know it may seem petty, but I don't want her touching me. I am an atheist, but out of respect for my MIL, I go along with it. Dinner was fine. Again, STBX is trying to act like we are going to be married and asking about Christmas and vacations, which I guess she wants to take with us as a family. When she mentioned this stuff, I knew going over it was a mistake. We finished dinner, and I pretty much got up, cleaned my daughter's dishes, and was ready to go. My daughters wanted to watch a movie with their mother, whom we always watch. I let them, and my STBX tried to cuddle next to me on the couch. I sat in the chair after that. My mother-in-law was very mad at my STBX the whole night for how she acted. I could tell by the looks she gave her. The movie ended, and we started to leave. My daughter fell asleep, so I carried them to the car. I went in to grab something, and my STBX grabbed me in tears, begging to work on things and saying that she wants to be a family and is so sorry for what happened. Before I could say anything, my MIL grabbed her by the hair, not joking, yanked her, told me goodnight, and began yelling at her daughter. So, yeah, I told my lawyer everything and said nothing indicated reconciliation, and you made that clear in your messages. You are fine. The wife is once again calling and begging to work on us. She gets left on hold. I will only talk about the girls, and I am sure they are going to want to do the same for Christmas. I don't know if I can or if it is okay. Once again, I will discuss this with my lawyer. Update 4. This will not be long, but things have gotten very bad for my girls. Basically, my girls had 2 sessions this week with their therapist. The first one was good. My girls came out with what seemed to be more peace and calm than usual. I talked to the therapist after, and she seemed to be very good and understood my girls well. So, I took them to their second one, and SHT is completely F-ed. Basically, the therapist explained, in age-appropriate terms, that the reason me and their mother are separating is that their mother cheated, had an affair, and betrayed me. I knew eventually she would, but I didn't think it would happen this soon. I went to get my girls, and basically it was a burst of tears and them climbing all over me and giving me hugs and crying, saying they loved me. I am happy they love me, but this is not what I wanted to happen with my girls. I asked the therapist why she told them. She said the girls knew you two were separating, and the girls noticed you seemed to be really mean and unloving with their mother. Your girls aren't stupid, she told me. They know who you are and how you treat their mom. They wanted to know why you were separating. I tried to walk around it the best I could, she said, but the girls are not going to progress in therapy if we don't tell them. I am not going to go into detail on what exactly she said to them, but it was age appropriate. But they know the age appropriate version of their mother being unfaithful. I think my oldest could maybe handle this and be okay, but not my youngest. So, we get home, and my girls won't let go of me. They are literally crying the whole night, so I order food. I put in their favorite movies in my bedroom, and we lay there all night. They fell asleep, and I went to the bathroom and just cried. My SDBX doesn't even realize the pain she is causing our girls. I don't know how I am going to deal with this. The therapist told me we could try medication for a bit until they get used to the new normal. I refused to do so, which she supported and said was just an option, as I am not drugging them. Disclaimer, she cannot give the drugs. She said they would need to see their primary care, and they would probably diagnose my girls with something that would allow them to medicate them. I would rather deal with my daughter's emotions in a healthy way. I won't have to worry about Christmas, as my daughters hate their mother now. How do I know? My oldest said she never wanted to see her mom again. My youngest follows what her older sister says, even though she may actually agree. I was shocked. I said, you don't hate her, you may be mad, but you don't hate her. She loves and cares about you. My oldest just said no, she doesn't, and then just cried into my arms until she fell asleep, and so did my youngest. So, this is my life now. The AP update. Hey everyone, sorry for the name. I am sure it sounds like a really bad sequel, but I wanted to be clear about what this update is about. Just clear up real fast, though. The girls are doing better. They are still going to the same therapist, but they are doing better. Kind of coming to the realization. My daughters say they don't hate their mother anymore. However, they have made it very clear that they do not want to see her for a long time. Their words are not mine. We will see how that goes. My wife has been made aware of their knowledge. She tried calling my girls. They answered, but my wife has since been a bit more respectful of mine and my girls' boundaries. I think the realization is starting to hit her. Anyway, to the AP, I already knew he was a poser, but this man is awful. So, someone asked if there was an ops. I didn't know. I started looking through some stuff for my wife's work. I was able to find a piece of paper with all the employee numbers and emergency contacts. I called him. It was his wife. It turns out he is married. I didn't think he was. Also, he has a toddler. Well, I told his wife, and she didn't believe me and hung up. A little later, she calls me back and asks to meet. I met her. I show her everything. She asks if we can go to my car. We do. Within a second of closing a door, she burst into tears, crying, saying, "How could he do this to me? What did I do wrong?" etc. Well, I said you did nothing wrong and gave her my lawyer's number. After that, she asked how long, and I said I think a year, maybe a tad longer. She then goes from being upset to freaking pissed. I asked her why. She proceeded to rip her hair off. It was a wig. Tell me she just beat cancer. I guess after their child was born, they found some stuff odd while she was in the hospital. They found a tumor. So over the last year and a half, she had 2 surgeries, went through chemotherapy, and was on medication. She looked very good, so I was surprised. She said she beat, and she is better. But they haven't had sex in like 2 years. She said that between my pregnancy and cancer, I couldn't. She got really sick while pregnant. Then her cancer almost unalived her. Once she started feeling a bit better, she felt horrible about herself. She started gaining weight from the meds, lost her hair, and wasn't as pretty as she used to be. She said, I was now at the point where she could have sex and was going to surprise him here soon for being a caring, loving husband. That is off the table. She started crying about her child growing up in a broken home, and I consoled her. She then tried to have sex with me, but I said no, you are not in the right state of mind, and this is not healthy. She thanked me for my honesty. Then I proceeded to ask for the evidence. I gave it to her, and she went home. We have texted a couple times since we are both BS, so we will keep in contact. So, thank you to the few people who mentioned looking for the ops. I didn't even think about it. I caught my wife, who was 13 years old, cheating with a co-worker. Part 2. Update 5. Hey everyone, so I am already being asked about whether I had Christmas with the OBS. The answer is yes, I did. It was very nice. Honestly, it was wonderful. The whole day was really amazing, all things considered. I laid out a lot of the girls' presents from Santa. This will probably be the last year my oldest believes in Santa, so I need to make it count. Anyway, I lay out the presents early, still dark with no sun. And the girls wake up probably within 15 minutes, saying that Santa had come. I drag my tired arse out of bed, and the girls open their presents. They were very happy. After I popped on a movie, the girls snuggled up next to me, and they fell asleep instantly. I eventually got up and made some coffee. My youngest woke up and said, "I am hungry, Daddy." So, I put an apron on her and let her help me make breakfast. My oldest then woke up, and we ate. They played with their presents and had a blast. It made me very happy. I need them to get ready later in the evening so they can go see their mother and grandmother. I am usually more strict with them about being ready, but with everything happening, I will admit I have been more lenient. They get ready and say they really don't want to go see their mom. I told them that their mom loved them. My therapist has said I need to encourage their relationship for proper growth. Plus, if I don't, she said my wife could use it against me in court as isolation. She said the girls can make the decision to have a relationship with their mother when they are older. Also, my wife knows of the therapist, and they have talked. She basically told my wife that you betrayed your husband, and it is clear that your husband is the girl's favorite. They are going to need to see a lot from you for them to eventually trust and love you again. Then I said, don't punish grandma for your mother's actions. Go for grandma. They agreed. I took them, and it was pretty easy going. I got there and called my MIL. She came out and grabbed the girls' things. They were going to stay the night for Christmas. My mom asked if they could. I asked my lawyer, and she said it was fine. However, don't leave them there for days or do it often. But that night was fine. I did tell the girls that if they wanted to come home at any time, all they had to do was call me, and I would come get them. As I was leaving, my STBX walked out. I don't know what they said, but my STBX said something to my MIL with a confused face, and my MIL gave her a stern face. I think no. My STBX looked at me with tears in her eyes and waved. I just drove off. I had left food in the oven and everything warm for the OBS to show up. She eventually did, and when she arrived, she didn't have her toddler. I asked where they were. She said that I guess her in-laws wanted to see them for Christmas, as did their father. Basically, she ran the same deal as me through our lawyer. I was like, okay. She was in a very pretty dress, leggings, fluffy boots, and a nice wig. We ate dinner and just talked about our past and got to know each other. After dinner, we went to the couch and I turned on the movie. We talked about other stuff. Eventually, I got a bottle of wine. I don't drink often, but I usually like a certain wine on Christmas. She asked if she could have some. I said, "Are you okay?" She said yes, so I gave her some. Our conversation basically went from our past, to our interest, to our current issues, and eventually to joking and laughing. As we drank more, we joked more. 2 bottles later, that never happens, our conversation turns sexual. Basically, kinks, what we want or miss, and other stuff. We both found out that we are similar in this aspect. Pretty much everything we are. She said that your wife was lucky and messed up. I said so, as did your husband. I know some of you said I should affirm her last try at me by saying that she is pretty, but I just thought it was a bad thing to do when it came to sex. I did, and she said she knew. I said you could actually take that wig off if you didn't want to leave it. I said you would look amazing without it. You are very beautiful with a pixie cut. She did and cried out a thank you. We kept talking about that stuff, and eventually we started watching a movie about cuddling. Now, mind you, you were both inebriated. When me and my wife used to cuddle, my STBX actually liked it, and it relaxed her when I would rub her breast. Not like hard groping or pinching nipples, but more like a bob massage. I was doing it to her out of habit. Eventually, she said that felt good. I freaked out, stopped, and said, "I am so sorry, I didn't realize I was even doing it." She said it was fine and asked if I would keep doing it, as it felt good and relaxed her. I asked, "Are you sure?" She said yes, so I did. I was not going to lie, I was aroused. She noticed and started rubbing me. I went whoops. I am sorry. She asked if I wanted her to stop. I said don't feel like you have to or anything. She said she wants to. So we did that for a few minutes before she kissed me, and I did kiss her back. This eventually led to her unzipping my pants and her giving me my head. I then forced her down. Consensually, something we discussed and gave her an oral, which then led to some very rough sex in the living room, kitchen, and office. We eventually ended up in my bed, where we had more passionate lovemaking. Lots of kissing and very slow sex. When we finished, we cuddled, cried, and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, we ate breakfast and got showered. I asked, "Did you plan on this?" She laughed and said no. A girl always has an extra pair of clothes. She then asked me as she was leaving, "Did you feel anything last night?" I was honest and said yes. However, we need to make sure that we are worried about us and our kids, and these feelings aren't false. She agreed and said we would explore them later. She actually gave me a kiss on the cheek and thanked me for a great night. I said I would text you later. I went and picked up my girls, and they actually had a good time. They said mom was on her best behavior for the most part. So yeah, right now I just finished preparing dinner, and will be spending the evening with my girls. Thank you, everyone. These Reddit posts are like my therapy, lol. Update 6. Hey everyone, I know it has been a couple months since I last updated. Things have just been very busy, so this won't be too long. Also, I don't blame many of you for thinking this is fake. Reddit is full of liars, SHT stormers, and storytellers. Anyway, girls are doing much better between their therapist and activity. They are having a much better time. They are still having their moments, but they are doing much better. As for me and OBS, we still talk almost daily but have done nothing physical since. We have met once since, and we discussed that even though we do not regret what we did, we shouldn't have done it. Now for my STBX. For a few weeks after Christmas, she was still trying pretty hard to get me to talk to her. However, that has, for the most part, stopped. She now works as a lawyer. My lawyer was made aware of this and has said that our meetings will be coming soon. She has realized that I am actually done and that she can't get me to change my mind. I am sure they will want to try reconciliation, but that will not be happening. She is still calling and texting me every now and again to try to get me to reconsider, but she gets left on hold. As to the OBSX, he has actually been arrested. Not too much detail for now, but I guess he confronted my STBX at work, and they got into a verbal altercation where she threatened to call the cops. He then assaulted her, which led to the workers there getting involved and pretty much dropping him. Cops showed up and arrested him, and STBX is pressing charges. I am sure he will be getting a lawyer against her for their affair, but I haven't heard anything. MIL told me this and said you can see her if you want. I guess he blacked her eye and busted her lip, but she said karma is a B and this is hers, so. I have not seen my wife, nor have the girls, since the incident. Other than this, unless something crazy happens, you probably won't hear from us until after our first meeting with our lawyers. Update 7. Hey everyone, I just wanted to give a quick update on everything. First, I need to apologize. I did not update you after our first meeting with our lawyers. A lot has just happened, and life gets in the way sometimes. However, I am going to try to summarize as much as I can. To begin, my girls. They are not as good as I was hoping. They were making really good progress, and were doing much better. However, as the day gets closer to the divorce and they realize we are actually separating, they both begin to really have issues. Their therapist said that the girls accepted it but really thought you two would work it out, realizing you aren't as hitting them hard. My youngest is doing okay, but my oldest is actually very concerned. She is actually depressed, and it is concerning to me. I am taking the proper precautions with her therapist and doing what she recommends. She herself is saying we may have to medicate her for a while, but I am resistant. However, it may get to a point where that is the only option. My oldest is an in shape and healthy girl, but I have noticed some of her clothes not fitting. I don't think she is eating as much, and I have discussed with her doctor putting things in her food to help her gain weight. I hope we can get this figured out because she is really starting to scare me. I feel I have failed as a father because I have never wanted my daughter to be like this. I am not religious, but if you can please pray for my daughters. Next, as usual, me and OBS are still in contact every day. We are getting along great, and things are getting easier. However, there is some bad news for her. No, it has nothing to do with her health or her child. Thank goodness. However, here, STBX has skipped town. I am not surprised by this. He left shortly after he was bailed out for assaulting my sister. I came to find out that my ex was the last to have contact with him. I guess my suspicions were correct. She was going to press charges, and he threatened to sue due to their affair and claimed she used her power over him to initiate the affair. She dropped the charges, he wasn't going to sue, and he left. No one knows where, and his parents claim they have no idea. Do I believe them? No, but I have no way of proving that. As for our meeting with our lawyers, there was not a lot of drama, to be honest. It was basically just my lawyer making my demands. After the incident with AP, I pushed for full custody. My lawyer laid out everything that I wanted. Her lawyer didn't even listen. He said that, for the sake of the children, you two need to reconcile. My lawyer laughed and said there was no chance in hell. She brought up everything that has happened with what she did, the issues with AP, etc. He said these are our demands, or we will see you in court. Once again, he just wanted to reconcile. My lawyer said it very well, and we will see you in court. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer. She agreed to all terms as long as she got the girls 2 weekends a month and alternating holidays. She originally said all weekends, but my lawyer said no. I agreed to the terms. She is still their mother, and I hope she has learned to make our girls the priority after all of this. My STBX looked awful. She is borderline anorexic, looks like she has aged 10 years, and I even think her hair may be failing out. Even though I do not love her, she is still the mother of my daughters, and I do not like seeing her that way. I asked my MIL to get her some help. She said this was her punishment. I said she was still your granddaughter's mom and your daughter. She needs to be there for them and needs help. So she is currently working with her to get her back to the way she was. She has actually left me a note to meet with her in person, in public, one time before the divorce to talk. I did agree, and we are meeting sometime next week to have one final talk. It will be recorded and made public. We are still married, but the end is in the first week of July. So a few more weeks and it will be over. Thank you all for the support, and I hope to be on the other side very soon. Update 8. Hey everyone, sorry I didn't update earlier, but I have just caught up with everything, especially with 2 active young ladies during the summer. I am going to hit just a quick few points, then get to my STBX and our meeting. Against my better judgment, we have decided to put my oldest on medication for a while. I discussed this with her primary, her therapist, and my STBX. She will be on the lowest dosage possible until everything settles. Once we see that she seems to have adapted to the way of life, we will start weaning her off of them. My youngest seems to be adjusting well, with no real issues. She does say she wishes we would live together again, but she understands why. She is very smart for her age. We have no clue where AP is. He has pretty much vanished. Me and OBS still talk every day. Now to the part I am sure you want to hear. Me and my ex met at the park where we usually took our girls. Everything was videoed in case she tried something. She didn't. Most of our discussion was about the girls, and she agreed that it was best if they stayed with me full-time for a while during our separation. She said she just isn't in the right mindset to be a mom right now. She said, clearly, I have failed as a mother, and I need to learn how to be one again. Like I said, there is no real need to go into detail about that because it was mainly discussing the girls. Now for the final part. As I got up to leave, I decided it was better to just leave with that information. She did ask if we could stop the divorce, get counseling, and try again. I said absolutely not. I told her that with everything you said and did to me, everything you allowed AP to say and do to me, remind her that she knows what he did to his wife and child. Everything she did to our girls. I am like, do you really think you deserve a second chance? She said no. At this point, I was pretty fired up. I started talking about how I loved her, gave up my career for her and our girls, and did everything for her. She, of course, started crying. Eventually, I just stopped. She said she was sorry. I of course responded with, sorry, don't mean SHT anymore. I then, for some reason, asked, what the hell was going through your head when you started this SHT? Now, I don't know if anyone on here said anything about this, but I do know someone sent me a link to a video on YouTube where some guy read it, and he and others started discussing my situation. I kind of skimmed through the comments, and many of them were right based on what she said next. She blurted, and I quote, I wanted to be the one at home. I had a confused look on my face. Then it all came out of her. She never wanted to run her dad's business. She wanted me to. She never wanted to work 40+ hours at the business. She wanted to be a mom and wife. She just kept going. I wanted you to take over and run it. I wanted to be the homemaker. I wanted to be the one waiting at home with meals. I wanted to be the one playing and taking care of our girls. I never wanted to be a breadwinner. I never wanted to be a business owner. She literally went on for a good 30 minutes, spouting this. After she was done, she looked like she was about to pass out. I just went, then why did you make me quit my job and say you wanted to run the business? She said, I wanted you to say I would do it. I was like, not my business. I have never worked in that field before, so I would have no clue what was going on. Plus, I said, wouldn't it be kind of awful of me to say I would run your dad's business? She said that was what she wanted. I then said, why didn't you say that? Apparently she wanted me to say it because she didn't want to admit wanting to be a stay-at-home wife. I then blew up and was like, all of this over some stupid pride. I was like, I wouldn't have cared if you wanted to be at home and admitted to it. I was so angry at this point, and I still am. I then asked, what does that have to do with the affair? She said that during the pandemic and towards the end, she was working so many hours, and she got jealous and angry about the fact that I was at home with the girls. The AP, I guessed, picked up on that and started telling her all those nasty things about me and how, if I were a real man, she could be at home. So, that led to the affair, and she said she did it once and tried to end it. He said okay, but started talking ill of me again and how she could be home, and she kept doing that. And eventually that became a consistent thing. Basically, she would try to end it, and he would insult me and make her angry and envious, and she would go back to having the affair again, which led to her being mean and nasty with me because of stupid jealousy that could have been avoided with communication from day one. At that point, she said she just wanted her family back and for things to be back to normal. I was so devastated and angry that I just got up and left. So after that, there has been a lot of anger in my heart, and I am just pissed off. Edit. Also, I forgot to mention that, I guess, back around late last year, she was pregnant with AP's child. She ended up having an abortion. MIL told me that she was acting odd and seeming sick, and I thought she was faking it for attention. Nope, she was pregnant. That is another reason she was going crazy at this time. Sorry for adding this after. I meant to add it originally, but I repenned this and submitted it before adding it. Update 9. Sorry to everyone for not posting in 3 months. This will be quick, but I just thought I should give a few updates. Girls are doing better. We are already slowly taking my daughter off the pills as she is doing better. The divorce is final. Me and OBS are still not dating, but we do go out when we can to talk and be a little sane. AP is now in jail and is facing prison time. My ex tried to commit self-harm shortly after the divorce, but is okay now. However, she is being monitored frequently. To summarize, on the day of the divorce, she didn't show up. The judge just signed the papers for me, and poof, it was done. I later called my ex and said, I don't know what you were trying to pull, but the papers are signed and it's official. About a week later, I get a call from my ex-mother-in-law, who is frantic. I ask her what's wrong. She found my ex in her bed, foaming from the mouth from prescription pills. She was not sure how she got them. She had already called an ambulance, and they were taking her to the hospital. She was not allowed to ride in the ambulance with her. I went to one of my neighbors, who has kids around the same age as my girls, to see if they could watch them. They did, thankfully. The girls and those kids get along very well, and they rushed to the ER. I got there, but they wouldn't let me in and said they had to get her stable. Around an hour later, the doctor comes out and says that she is fine and that it seems she will make a full recovery, but they will need to do some tests to make sure her brain or any other part wasn't damaged. Thankfully, none were. I waited at the hospital till she woke up. I was so angry at her. How could she do this? I'll admit, I was holding her hand and was distraught. When she woke up, she squeezed my hand. At this point, I just sat there. After a while, she started coming and seemed to be okay. She knew who I was, so that was a good sign. She started crying, and I told her not to cry. I told her that when her mother got back, she had to go get some things because they were going to keep her for monitoring, and that I had to get the girls. She tried to talk to me, but I told her she needed to rest. I left, and since then we have had good talks. No, we are not getting back together. Although she told me she would wait for me. If it means forever, then she will. I told her forever is a long time. She is back to normal, has no damage, and is moving on fine. I heavily guilt-tripped her about the girls and asked if she would be okay with them not having their mother. That kind of snapped her out of her slump. We are working more as a team for the girls now, but she is still wanting us to reconcile. No chance. AP eventually showed up and tried to break into the OBS house. She had officially divorced him and taken the house. Thankfully, where we live, a judge can just officiate the divorce if they see fit. When he did OBS, he called the cops and thankfully arrived in time. OBS was defending their child from him. I know it sounds awful, but thankfully they are infants and won't remember. Basically, she locked the door and called the cops. He broke the door and tried to take the child, but she wouldn't let him. He beat her, punched her, kicked her, and threatened to unalive her. She has had the recording since her child was young, like a baby camera. He then tried to ESA her, but thankfully the cops showed up before this happened and were able to arrest him. He is looking at a lot of time. Plus, they later found he was drunk and high. I had an illegal gun in the car and drugs. So, there is a good chance this evil boss will never see the light of day again. I have been helping her a lot, and so has one other person. My ex-MIL, since she found out what happened, she has been helping her a lot. Helping with bills, cooking, cleaning, and raising her child. My ex-MIL looks at this child as another grandchild, and OBS is happy about it. His parents want nothing to do with her or the child now. So, it's just her. Thankfully, my ex-MIL is fire and brimstone, but she is also a warm-hearted woman. So, they have been helping. She has refrained from telling my ex about it. I am sure she knows, though, as it is the talk of the town. So, from my understanding, people have noticed that she seems to be so disappointed in herself that she can't stand it. That's pretty much it at this point. I did promise an update where I said how the serving went, and that it would happen in the future. I will probably do one more update and then be done with this forever. My husband posted my body online. Last Friday, I spent my evening with Kate, a young friend from work, as she wanted to discuss something personal with me. I didn't think anything of it, as we do have a very personal relationship outside of work as well. As soon as I arrived at her place, the tension in the air was thick. She explained that she wanted to discuss a serious matter with me but that she didn't know how to go about it. I told her to just rip the band-aid off and tell me. She told me that she had found 2 recordings of a woman she believed to be me on an adultery website. I told her that wouldn't be possible, but she was adamant that I was the woman in the recording. And she was right. I've never recorded myself without cloths or having sex with my husband, but there I was in 2 recordings of 7 minutes and 4 minutes. Both of them recorded in our old bedroom. As I rewatched every second of it, it started to dawn on me that this was what my husband was doing. But I pushed that deep down because there must be a reasonable explanation for this. Honestly, I left her place with my mind in a complete meltdown. I could barely hear what she was saying, but she did follow up with a text saying she's been in contact with the website about getting it taken down and that she'll help me go through this. She also said she's scouring the internet in case there are more out there. I came home and pretty much ransacked my house looking for evidence, and I found it. My husband was using hidden spy cameras to spy on me and record me in my most intimate moment. I then just spent hours vomiting, crying, projectile vomiting some more, and begging God to just let this be a nightmare. I am a deeply religious and fully veiled Muslim woman, and I've never been with anyone but my husband, and all this time he has been sharing my most intimate moments with the world. I don't know what to think or what to do. I can't look at him or speak to him. I've locked myself in our bedroom, pretending I have COVID. All I do is look up how other people have dealt with getting things removed, and it seems like once it's on the internet, it really is forever, even if I remove it from this one website. I've been crying nonstop. He truly must be something demonic, as he is right now talking about ordering in some of my favorites to see if I have an appetite since I haven't been eating well. I am so unbelievably hurt. I don't know how to share this with my family or how to ask for help. I am crippled with shame, anger, and pain. Answering some questions. 1. My husband or soon-to-be an ex-husband and I are of the same religion, race, ethnicity, and nationality. 2. My culture does not participate in honor unalivings, and I'm not afraid of my family harming me or not siding with me. 3. My family would support me in divorcing him. In fact, they would demand I do. 4. The laws in my country are secular, but in certain circumstances, it allows for the various religious groups in the country to hold their own courts that can enforce their rulings, as long as they don't impose or break secular law or civil liberties. 5. I do plan on taking this to a secular and religious court, as I want him punished. 6. I am veiled by choice, and the vast majority of my fellow countrywomen do not veil. 7. I am a niqabi, meaning the only parts of me visible to the public are my eyes. When I am with my family, with other women, or in women-only spaces, I don't veil. 8. Kate and I do not share the same religion or dress alike, yet we are friends. Update. I left him as I said I would. He went to work. The movers arrived, we packed my stuff, and we left. The entire time, I was crying to the point that even the movers were worried for me. But I couldn't stop myself from crying. I went home, sat my parents and siblings down, and explained the situation. My parents were and still are confused. They are elderly and fragile. They don't understand the internet. They just keep saying, okay, let's talk to the people, and it will be gone. But my siblings understand. They are angry. They are sad and heartbroken on my behalf. My siblings and brother-in-law took me home. We waited for him, and well, we had a conversation with him. He denied it at first. So my brothers were firm with him, and he started to be more truthful. He said he did it because he was depressed, because he had an adult videos addiction and an sex addiction, and because he didn't think anyone would see it. He said he posted only a few. When we asked him to be specific, he said he posted anything from 5 to 8. We had him take it down, but who knows how many times it has been downloaded or shared. In that moment, I also found out he had a secret phone. He was also cheating on me with random women and sex workers. All this time, I thought he was working hard. But nope, he was out disgracing himself and betraying our marriage. At some point, he convinced us he needed to use the bathroom, and he somehow managed to call his mother. He arrived at our home with his brother and cousins. There was a commotion as they were angry at the treatment of their family member. Then things calmed down enough to explain to them what he had done. His mother fainted. His mother is elderly and not in the best health condition. We called for an ambulance. My neighbor had also called the police, and I was arrested by the time the ambulance arrived to take care of my mother-in-law. I spent the evening locked up. I didn't exactly have a polite conversation with him. So yes, I was arrested for assaulting him, specifically slapping him, and he refused to press charges. I got released the next morning and went home to my parents. I cried some more because my parents kept crying. Then, a few days later, I spoke to some lawyers my sister had contacted, as they had experience with non-consensual material being posted online. They have been handling things with the police as I did press charges, and they are dealing with the websites. I have also started the process of divorce. I went to the clinic and got tested, and luckily he didn't give me anything so far, but I have another test scheduled just to be sure. I have spoken to his mother, and she apologized to me even though it's not her fault. She told me that she understood why I wanted him punished. She asked that I let it stay in the hands of the law rather than hurt him or have him hurt. He's in hiding, but he still calls and texts me from random numbers. He still lies and tries to manipulate me. I've just been documenting everything he says and texts me. Oh, at this point, everyone knows. I mean everyone, even little kids. And I feel more humiliated now than I did at first. Update. This man has destroyed everything I have worked for and has completely destroyed the very little sense of stability and safety I had left. I had to resign from my job. A job that I loved. Jobs don't come easy for me with the way that I look. I can't work there anymore because I am a potential danger to the children and staff. Since then, perverted men have started to harass me at work. I work with vulnerable children, and mothers who have heard about me have started to refuse to work with their children. Some don't want me to be involved with their child because their husbands can't stop being weird. Fathers have leered at me or made lewd comments toward me, and one of them even offered me money to sleep with him. Men have called me with greater frequency than ever before. Men stare at me. A man followed me from my dentist office and touched me on the street. Random men call my phone, my family home, and my office to verbally abuse me because my husband has posted my address, my personal and work email, phone numbers, workplace address, and every other bit of information online. It is as if the eyes and judgment of the entire world are on me. Yes, the great majority of people are sympathetic, kind, and supportive of me. Many people have reached out in support of me, from old classmates to former colleagues, neighbors, members of my religious community, family friends, his family, and many more. They have expressed solidarity and kindness, but the crazies and perverts who believe in him and are like him are bolder, louder, and much more noticeable. Then I found out from my lawyers and their investigators that he was drugging me and assaulting me as I slept. I suffer from migraines and insomnia, and take medication for them. He saw my medication as an opportunity to drug me with my own prescriptions. He shared and was actually bragging on a forum where other perverts congregated about how clever he was for drugging me with my own medication, and they were encouraging him to do more things for me. The soon-to-be ex-husband has also decided to spread rumors that I was aware of the cameras and pressured him into posting online. And there are people who believe him. He also changed his mind about not pressing charges. I went to court. The judge and prosecutors were sympathetic and dismissed the case. It was a combination of my lawyers explaining the circumstances that led to me slapping him and his subsequent actions. My lawyer used his own words against him since he wrote it in text, and on a recorded call, he admitted to me not having slapped him that hard and that he only pressed charges to cause me harm. But his crimes against me are still being investigated by the prosecutors. Update. It all boils down to jealousy and me emasculating him. I wish I could say I was feeling better or doing better, but I feel awful, and I am still struggling with everything. It is still his life's mission to be as cruel as he can be and to stand in the way of every step I take. He is still refusing to work with my divorce lawyer. He continues to be difficult every step of the way, and has run off his own lawyers. He is now on his third lawyer, and we are again starting from scratch in the divorce negotiations. He has been granted an extension by the courts due to his last lawyer just dropping him a few days before our hearing. As for posting non-consensual material, a trial date was scheduled, and he recently asked for an extension, and he'll probably be granted it as his criminal lawyer dropped him too. So in the last month, he has been dropped by his divorce lawyer and his criminal lawyer. The man is on a roll. When it rains, it sure pours. My father passed away a little over a month ago, and my mother is now in hospice care as she is soon to go back to God. I'm sad but not shocked about this, as I've had a long time to prepare for it. My father had been battling cancer for almost 3 years and was as prepared as a person can be, and my mother's health had been declining significantly for years due to her dementia. My soon-to-be ex-husband decided it was a great idea to corner me at the venue we held the after-funeral meal at. He decided to wait for me to be alone. He approached me as I was cleaning up the venue. I was on my own, and at that time I was kind of exhausted and could not muster up the rage to chase him off as I had done many times before, so I just let him talk. He seemed almost decent, as he was giving a million excuses for why things were the way they were. He cried about how awful he felt for hurting me. Then he started telling me about how he always felt I was better than him in everything. as I made more money, was better educated, and had been better traveled than him, and that he felt jealous of my confidence. In the beginning, these were things that he was most attracted to, but as our relationship and marriage progressed, these were the things he started to dislike about me. He also said that he was angry that I refused to consider being a stay-at-home wife and mother, even though he knew from the beginning that I wasn't the stay-at-home, homemaker type. He said that he tried to be a good husband, but that my refusal to bend or let him have the last say in things was the catalyst for his anger and need to humiliate me. He talked about how he had always had addiction issues, but he thought that if he was married, he would be cured of his depression, his adultery videos, and his sex addiction. He felt like if I ever found out, I would have never married him or divorced him, and that angered him and pushed him to want to punish me for thinking I was better than him. He was jealous and angry about so many things. But when I said to him, "So you hurt me because you felt jealous and inadequate in comparison," he lost his mind and started to shout and say that he knew I would react that way. I decided to refrain from commenting further and just let him spill his guts uninterrupted. For 3 hours, he made excuse after excuse for why he did what he did. But it all comes down to him feeling inferior to me, and being jealous and angry that I dared have a mind and life of my own. He said right before our wedding he joined a men's group online that was helping him deal with his adultery and sex addiction, and one tip given was to make your own adultery videos and watch that instead. But he knew I'd never agree to it, so it was my fault he needed to spy on me and that he never intended to share it with others. But one day I had angered him so much, and as a payback, he posted it, and he felt good. And so every time I emasculated him by having my own mind or upset him in some way or another, he would post more. Eventually he gained a following and had so many men asking him to post more that he started to like the fact that other men looked up to him for his sexual prowess. At the same time, his sex addiction started to come back, and he fell back into his habit of picking up women, and when he couldn't get it for free, he'd hire a sex worker. Then, I guess, it spiraled out of control for him. The more he spent on his addictions, the more lies he told, the more he felt like a failure for me to cover our expenses, the more he resented me, and he got stuck in a cycle of self-destruction, which in turn only fueled his anger with me. He also says he joined a support group for addicts and started going to an addiction rehabilitation clinic as an outpatient to deal with his issues, and that I should give him credit for that. He feels that I should be proud of him for doing that and that I should take him back since he's putting in so much work. He also feels I should appreciate him not stalking me since my dad unalived, and he is sincere in his feelings this way. He genuinely doesn't understand why I'm not seeing how hard he's been trying the past few months. In his deluded mind, he thinks that his honesty in our conversation should count for something and that I am just being a heartless bee for having been stoic and unmoved by his tears and his show of vulnerability. Even though he gave a great performance of being human during our conversation, I remained unmoved by it because there was nothing to be moved about. I just continued to pack things up from the venue, got in my car, and went home. I'm still not working. I still have crazy men calling my phone at all hours of the day, and I still feel humiliated and embarrassed. The only good thing that has happened is that several of the sites have taken down the recordings and banned him from using their platforms. Update: curses are like young chickens, they always come home to roost. Finally, I have some good news. So a while back, I was granted a restraining or protective order, and my now officially ex-husband did continue to stalk and harass me. After the umpteenth time of calling the police and going to court, he was finally imprisoned, and he has been in prison for a little over a month. I was also granted my divorce. I initially wanted a quick divorce and wanted to just give him everything he asked for, but he kept finding ways to delay or asking for more and more, and I just snapped, so I told my lawyers to do their worst, and they did. My lawyers hated him, and I got everything I wanted and way more. Not to gloat, but it was really satisfying seeing him cry. This has been the most peaceful month I've had in a long time. This entire time has been such a trying time, and it has affected my mental and physical health. I've lost 12 kilograms, and I've lost a ton of hair due to the stress he was causing me. But I can honestly say that him wailing in court was the chicken soup my soul needed. I've moved from my city and now live on the other side of the country, and I've gotten myself a decent enough job. I am slowly mending my confidence. I am in therapy, and I can't say it's working right now, but I know if I stick with it, it will. The non-consensual material he posted has been removed from the more reputable websites he posted on. And my lawyers were able to get me monetarily compensated as these companies didn't want to go to court over it. I mean, money doesn't really change things that much, and I am still hurt, but it's something. I'm also not so delusional as to think that it isn't still out there in some way or another, and I know there really isn't much I could ever do about that, so I'm just trying to make peace with it. My ex-husband will be serving time in prison for what he did. My lawyers are working with the courts, and that should be sorted out soon enough. I think the reality of the consequences is becoming very clear to him, as I have heard through the grapevine that he attempted to commit self-harm and is now in protective custody until his trial date. He is facing up to 30 years of corporal punishment, and I absolutely look forward to it. My wife stole our daughter's college money to fund her shopping addiction and wants me to take the blame. I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and I don't know what to do. And the problem is, I can't discuss this with anyone I'm close with for privacy reasons. I've been with my wife Andrea and my stepdaughter Cassie for 8 years now. I love them both to end. But Cassie is a very brilliant young woman. Recognizing her potential, me and Andrea decided to put together a college fund for Cassie so she wouldn't be crushed by debt. Over the years, it has amounted to over $200,000. Cassie is aware of this and is banking on it since she's trying to get into the Ivy League. To make a long story short, last week, I found out that almost $170,000 of the money was missing from the account. I freaked the F out and asked Andrea if she knew anything about it. She teared up and said that she had been spending the money over the years to fund her spending habit. I was furious, but I had a moment of clarity. I've browsed these subs enough to know that an affair was possible, so I asked her if she was having one. She adamantly denied it and offered any proof I needed. Social media accounts, emails, her work phone, everything. She offered to show me the receipts as well. There was nothing that popped out as suspicious, and the math from the receipts added up as well, so I let it go. But we still had the major problem of the money being gone. She described herself as a shopping addict, and the money from Cassie's account was just too tempting not to use. She didn't make excuses but offered no solutions. As stated before, I was beyond furious. She ruined Cassie's chances at going to college debt-free, and has changed the trajectory of her whole life. I had asked her to stay with her sister while I tried to figure this out. Cassie was concerned about why she was leaving, but we just said we needed a little bit of space. I asked Andrea to come back home yesterday, and we had an extremely long discussion about how to handle this. She stopped me from talking and asked a favor of me. She asked if I could take the fall for her. For context, she and Cassie don't get along for a variety of reasons, and knowing how independent Cassie, she will probably leave right after college, if not during. In fact, me and Cassie get along very well, and she comes to me for a lot of her issues. Andrea fears this will permanently drive Cassie away, and she doesn't want to lose her. I told her that before we even talked about that, she needed to acknowledge her mistake and own it. She needed to go to individual therapy. We needed couples counseling. She needed to find a shopaholic support group, and I would be controlling the finances from now on. She said those terms were steep but fair. I said she needed to tell Cassie what she did, apologize, and hope for the best. She refused and said she could never lose Cassie. She said I could survive the mistake, but she couldn't. I told her that in order to even consider me taking the fall, she needed to agree to my terms. I don't know what the hell to do. The last thing I want to do is lie to Cassie, but I don't want Andrea and Cassie to split up forever. And the worst part about this whole thing is that Cassie's life is ruined either way. And I don't know how to replenish the money other than maybe borrowing from my 401k. Reddit, do you have any suggestions? Divorce is always an option. But I love Andrea despite her mistakes, and dating at age 52 is next to impossible. Edit. After everyone in here knocked some sense into me, I realized I couldn't lie to Cassie. I love her too much, and she deserves the absolute truth, no matter how ugly and hard it is. I will be talking to Andrea and telling her that we need to tell her the truth together as a condition of us staying together, or else I will initiate divorce proceedings and tell Cassie anyway. Also, as someone suggested, I don't need her trying to flip the script on me, so I'll record our interactions going forward. Thanks. Edit 2. I want to thank everyone here for really opening my eyes yesterday. You're all right. I need to put Cassie first, and like I said, I'll be telling the absolute truth. Even if she gets mad at me and disowns me, at least I'll know I did the right thing. In addition, I'm going to pay for her college myself. I can pull money from a couple of places, such as my retirement and inheritance, so it'll be okay. If I have to live a little frugally during retirement and work a few extra years, then so be it. Cassie is worth it. I honestly doubt her mother is going to sell her stuff, so that's why I'm taking this route. As for Andrea, I've been criticized for wanting to let Andrea off the hook, so to speak, but it's easy to say when really deep feelings aren't involved. That being said, I don't think I can stay with her. What she did was horrendous, and she ruined our daughter's future for her addiction. We had a long discussion late last night, and I threatened divorce unless she told Cassie the truth. She begged me not to do this, but I put my foot down, and eventually she agreed, but only if I agreed not to divorce and I helped to repair their relationship. I likely won't be doing either. She made her bed so she could sleep in it. So if I have to update, I'll probably just make a whole new post. Thanks a lot, guys. Relevant comments. How could you not have noticed? Weren't you getting a 1099 and noticing less interest? To answer your question, I had really nothing to do with the account other than contributing money. I just took her word for it. She showed me statements from time to time, so I had no reason to suspect anything. Plus, we have separate finances, except for a joint account for household expenditures and bills. Although Cassie is my daughter, officially I'm only my stepdad, so Andrea handles all matters related to her finances unless Cassie asks me for something directly. Also, I wasn't the lone contributor. Her grandparents on both sides contributed, as well as my own parents. I only discovered what was going on when my wife left a statement out in the open. I'm now believing she simply pocketed whatever money she got and doctored the statements. I knew the amount that was supposed to be there because a lot of the money came in the beginning. Her grandparents initially contributed $75,000. Mine contributed another $30,000 and the amount that I added over the years. Don't take from your savings to pay Cassie back, take from your wife's. I asked her to take money from her account to pay her back. She said protecting her retirement is important to her and that she could take out a loan since her credit is excellent. Surprisingly enough, she doesn't run up her credit cards. Now I know how. Also, I'm hesitant to do this. I understand everyone wants her to fry for this, and I do too. However, if I'm to stay with Andrea, I don't want her to have to continue working until she's unalive. I would like to enjoy our retirement together. My retirement is very healthy, plus I have a few investments and an inheritance, so I could survive the hit. The most important thing is that Cassie gets to go to whatever school she wants and not have to worry about it. The comments are right. I'm not letting Andrea off the hook. She's going to pay for this, and she will be telling Cassie why Andrea and Cassie don't get along. Andrea is a widow, and Cassie took the passing of her father very hard since she was so young. According to Andrea, a lot of their problems started there out of grief and anger. Then Cassie grew up, and she's developed into a bit of a tomboy. Andrea is a kind of girly girl, and doesn't relate to Cassie dressing up tomboyish. They don't agree on much. Cassie wants to be a physicist, and Andrea wants her to do something that has more money-making potential. Plus, there's the usual teenage daughter and mother strife. They have screaming matches that I have to intervene in. Update. I want to start this by thanking everyone who replied to me in the original post. You all showed me tough love, and I appreciate that. I even appreciate those who were calling me a doormat, because, like I said in the previous post, it woke me up. I won't be staying with Andrea. She's lied and manipulated me and Cassie for far too long for me to stay with her. The fact that she stole from me, Cassie, and Cassie's grandparents makes this as close to unforgivable as it gets. The most wronged party here is Cassie. She has an amazing future ahead of her, and I refuse to let her future go to waste because my wife made such selfish choices. Also, I'd like to take the time to answer some common questions, some of which I answered in the original post, but I'll post them again here so everyone can see them. 1. Over half the money in the account came from Cassie's grandparents, aka Andrea's parents, Cassie's bio dad's parents, and my parents, whom she also calls grandparents. This money came in the beginning, which is why I knew how much was supposed to be in there. 2. I never handled the account. Although I claim Cassie as my daughter, she is only my stepdaughter officially. As such, her mother handles all financial matters related to her. I simply gave her money to put in the account, and she showed me statements. My belief is that she pocketed the cash whenever I gave her money. 3. I did notice all the stuff she was buying. She claimed that they were either on sale or because she got a work bonus. She makes a very good living, and I thought she was responsible with money, so I said all right. I did ask her why she needed so many Christian Louboutin shoes, and she shrugged it off. And although people can't wrap their heads around it, it's very easy to spend $170,000. 4. A large chunk of the money went to buy a Mercedes, which I thought was a lease. She had a 7-year-old Lexus that, according to her, her friends were laughing at. Keeping up appearances for her wealthy friends is very important to her. 5. Cassie and Andrea do not get along for a variety of reasons. Allegedly, Cassie takes a lot after her deceased father, and Andrea can't relate to her at all, or maybe doesn't try hard enough. Cassie much prefers me to talk to. We have parent-child boundaries, but Cassie considers me one of her best friends. Her words, not mine. 6. I realized taking the fall was her manipulating me, plus it would have opened me up to a crap ton of consequences that I don't need to deal with. Plus, honesty is always the best policy. 7. I wasn't thinking properly in my last post and was afraid to be alone and single. I guess I have some issues being alone that I need to address. Plus, I really do love Andrea. We connect in a very deep way, but I'm still divorcing her. Oddly enough, a comment that senior homes have chlamydia outbreaks made me laugh and made me realize that I could date again at this age. Plus, you guys gave me some very nice compliments, so thank you for those. After my final update on the original post, I talked to Andrea deep into the night. She went back and forth with me on admitting to Cassie what she did. She said that she or even both of us could get loans and take care of the money then. I said she had a problem and she needed to make amends, which was a talking point from here. When I threatened her with divorce, she agreed to tell me that as long as I don't divorce her, I guess she's afraid of losing everything. That afternoon, we sat Cassie down and told her the facts. She thought we were just kidding at first, but when she realized we weren't kidding, she got extremely upset. I'll spare you the details, but she and Andrea got into an extremely loud and vicious shouting match. Cassie called her some truly awful names, and Andrea, while she didn't curse at her, tried to defend herself but started getting angry at the names she was being called. They were so loud, the neighbors called the police, and I had to awkwardly explain the situation to them while hoping they didn't think I was some kind of wife beater. Cassie told Andrea that she never wanted to speak to her again and that she never wanted a dime of her money. And she stormed off. I asked Andrea at this point to stay with her sister indefinitely while we gave Cassie and me some space. She didn't want to go. She fought me to stay, but I told her I and Cassie needed time apart from her. So she packed her stuff and went to her sister's house. As for Cassie, she went to her room and locked the door. She let me in after I told her that her mother had left. She cried in my arms and expressed that her future was now ruined. I told her it wasn't, that I would cover her college from my retirement, and that I would make it right. She doesn't exactly know what a 401k is yet, but she told me that she doesn't want me to work until I'm 90, like the people at Walmart, just because of her. I just told her she's worth it and that you do stupid things for the people you love. She said that she would start looking for scholarships and maybe other schools where she could get a full ride since she has excellent grades and extracurriculars. I then admitted that Andrea wanted me to take the fall for her, and that I had considered it, but I came to my senses. She got upset with me and told me that would have been the stupidest thing I could have done. She said she wouldn't have believed I did it anyway, and it only would have made her more upset at her mother. She told me that she doesn't blame me and that she's not mad at me for the money being gone, but she is mad that I'd want to cover for her mother. I apologized for that. We talked and cuddled for a while longer before calling it a night. The next morning, I got a call from Andrea's parents asking if the story was true. Cassie had told them the story, and they were calling to confirm. I had the voice recordings and bank statement to prove it. They were livid, but they begged me not to leave Andrea for this and to try and help her through her addiction. I told them I wasn't sure about that yet and hung up. A while later, my parents called and asked me about it, which I confirmed. They were probably more mad than Cassie, all things considered, and they're threatening to press charges. I told them to calm down and that I would handle it. Cassie is doing okay. She's still a little shell-shocked, but she seems to be taking it as well as one could hope for. I made her pancakes this morning, and that seemed to brighten her mood a bit. I asked her if she wanted to do therapy, and she said she'd think about it. I will be doing therapy for myself. Andrea has been calling to talk, but I'm just letting it ring, so she's leaving voicemail. She's offering anything to make it right. Money, sex, favors, you name it. But it's not going to work. I feel horrible for Cassie, especially so close to Christmas. I'm going to get her Billie Eilish tickets since that's her god. It won't make up for it at all, but it could go a long way toward helping her feel better. So that's it for now. I guess I'll update if anything further happens, but I think this is pretty much it. Thanks all, you've been a tremendous help. Edit, I forgot to add that I watch my credit like a hawk, so there was nothing suspicious there, but it's going to be locked. I'll be going to my accountant next week to have Andrea removed from everything meaningful. Life insurance, wills, bank accounts, etc., and I'll be adding Cassie. I've started changing passwords and the like, so Andrea doesn't have access. I'm stringing Andrea along with non-divorce until my accounts are secure. Also, from what I can tell, Cassie's credit is okay. But I'll be doing a deep scan and locking it as well. Edit 2, I can't believe I have to say this, but there are a few people saying it's creepy that I'm cuddling with my daughter. If sitting together with her crying on my shoulder and us talking is considered creepy, then sure, I'm creepy. Leave it to the internet to make things weird, I guess. And no, I don't think I'm some hero. I'm just trying to do the right thing. Relevant comments. Splitting things in the divorce. We have a prenup since she has money as well, so there are no fears there. We have separate finances, and the only major asset we have is the house. I'm willing to buy out her half so I can own it fully. Don't cash in your retirement. Make Andrea sell her stuff. Sorry, I forgot to put it in the post. She doesn't want to sell her stuff and is just offering to get a loan. She shouldn't have a choice but to not sell. You are letting this woman ruin your future. Why is this worth it? The answer is Cassie. She's smart and wise beyond her years in some regards, but still a teenager in many others. She's very proud and has refused her mother's money. I asked her if she wanted the car, and she said no. Asked if she would be okay with her mother paying her back, she said no. Like I said in the post, she wants nothing to do with her mother anymore. And that includes her money. That's probably just anger talking, and I'm hoping cooler heads will prevail. But I think there's a part of her that's embracing the challenge of figuring this out on her own, or at least without her mother's money. As for me, if Andrea wants all that stuff so bad that she's choosing it over us, she can have it. We'll be great without her. So in a way, she is paying for all that stuff in the most precious way, with her marriage and, most importantly, her child. You're letting her walk all over you. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't view it as her walking all over me. She's lost her marriage, her daughter, her family is furious with her, and her friends will likely drop her when they hear what she's done and realize she's not as wealthy as she appears to be. To me, that seems to have real consequences. I'm a big fan of The Twilight Zone, and this seems like one of those endings where the person gets what they want but doesn't realize what they had to give up to get it. She can have her possessions, it just cost her everything to get them. To quote Jake the Snake Roberts, she's a victim of her own greed, wallowing in the muck of her own avarice. Plus, she'll likely end up getting sued by my parents anyway. And if Cassie decides she wants her money, then I'll support her fully in getting it. My retirement will be fine. Let's just say my portfolio is very diverse and healthy. Plus, I have an inheritance. I'm not bragging, I'm just stating facts. Plus, there is the chance Cassie gets a scholarship or assistance. New update. Hello everyone. It's been a long time since I've been here. A lot has happened, and truth be told, I haven't had the time to post an update here, but I finally have a quiet moment to give you an update. First, I want to thank everyone here for helping me at such a pivotal time in my life. After rereading my original threads, I can't believe how indecisive and weak I came off in them. The prospect of my marriage ending and unaliving alone really kind of shook me to my core and thus made me come off that way. I started therapy, and it made me realize that being single wasn't the worst thing that could happen to me. In fact, I've turned my loneliness into solitude and have taken the time to work on myself. And if that last sentence didn't tip you off, then let me be the first to tell you that I'm single now. Me and Andrea are legally separated and currently in divorce mediation. Unfortunately, Andrea is still very much in denial and is trying everything she can to get me back, including delaying the divorce as much as possible so that we can work on our marriage. She claims that she's begun seeing a therapist who's helped her see the problem she has and has gotten her on the path to recovery. I don't know if I buy it, but I told her it's a good thing if it's true. She has also apologized to my parents, hers and her late husband's parents, for what she's done and offered to pay back the money. They've all forgiven her, but are keeping her at arm's length. She's been desperate to reconnect with Cassie, but Cassie has kept her word and decided to never speak to her mother again. Or at least until she's ready to. Andrea's wealthy friends, whom she was so desperate to impress, have been around our house offering their help. They may be nosy, busybodies, but they were very nice to me and Cassie in the immediate aftermath of Andrea's betrayal. They offered everything from a shoulder to cry on to baked goods to spa dates. I only ever really took them up on the baked goods because I will never turn down homemade lemon bars and oatmeal raisin cookies. Cassie did take them up on spa dates, so there's that. One woman in particular, Susan, has been around more often than the others. While I feel like the other friends were prying for information, she seemed more genuine and just there to help me and Cassie heal. She cooked meals for us, helped around the house, and just spent a lot of quality time with me in particular. We didn't ask, want, or need her to do any of this for us, but she did it out of the kindness of her heart, and I really appreciate it. We've gotten a lot closer in such a short time, and I truly consider her a friend. It's actually amazing that I could get along with someone who's so much younger than me. Usually, I have a hard time connecting with younger people, even if they're adults. But now we get to the most important part of this update, Cassie. As a cheery Christmas gift, I took her and one of her friends to Montreal last month to see her favorite artist, Billie Eilish, at this festival. She loved it, and Montreal is such a beautiful city to visit. All in all, she took the loss of her college fund pretty well. Cassie is a very hard-working person, and she put her nose to the grindstone trying to find a scholarship. Unfortunately, she missed the cutoff for most of the scholarships she could have qualified for. But the school of her choice is giving her a very generous financial aid package. In addition, she qualified for some local grants, so she got her entire first year covered. And yes, Cassie did thankfully get into her school of choice. In fact, she had many acceptance letters and full ride offers, but she had her heart set on her school of choice. In fact, I dropped her off last week. I'm extremely proud of her, and I know she'll do well. I'm an empty nester now, all alone in this big house, and the silence is deafening, but Susan has been around to keep me company, and I've taken up bike riding as a hobby. So all in all, things are okay, not great, but certainly better than before. And with that, I think I can put this saga to bed. The divorce will hopefully be finalized in the next few months, and I can finally move on with my life. But the most important thing is that Cassie is fulfilling her dreams and potential, and I couldn't be happier about that. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoy listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.